He was hastened to St. Margaret's Hospital, where her condition remains grave.
I've heard worse. That's not bad. I like that.
Welcome, everyone, to the Cheap Seat Critics podcast. Today we're covering the 1980 film The Changeling. Yay!
Yeah.
Ooh,
Spooky.
Yeah, so terrifying. My hair's turned gray.
Sounds like
with
you've
me
lost your voice from screaming.
and with me today,
Hello, everybody. I'm a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
I'm a character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Sprinks.
Yeah, and Sprink's socials. Boom.
Oh, boy, what a handoff. Thanks, Crimson. We have TikTok and Instagram, which is at Cheap Seat Critics. We also have a Twitter, which is Cheap Seat Critics as well, but that one ends with an X instead of a CS. And we're also at Facebook, Cheap Seat Critics Podcast, and youtube.com/@CheapSeatCritics as well if you want to see the slideshow we do of whatever we're covering, as well as our PNG tubers we have, wonderfully designed by Crimson Mad. And we also have a letterbox if you're interested in those numbers as well.
Wonderful.
Simply wonderful.
Simply splendid. I guess I'll just jump straight into facts here. So, this had a pretty small budget. I think even for the 80s. I didn't check inflation calculator, though, for sure.
Wow.
But it had a $6.6 million budget and a $12 million box office. So not great, but at least it's got its money back, at least. Apparently, in 2020, it was announced that this was getting a remake, but there has been nothing since then. So I don't know if that got scrapped or if that's still in the works.
I'd love to see a remake.
I wouldn't. I think it would be CG ridden, and it would lose its identity, I think.
I guess my interest in the remake would be, it's a train wreck. Let's see what happens. You can see the train's about to collide. May as well watch, right?
I like if you look it up on Wikipedia, it says the box office was either 12 million or 5.6 million. There's no, that's a pretty big difference.
Well, 5.6 might just be domestic.
Oh, or they put or. It should have been 12 and 5.6.
Was this an international film?
Yes, it was, because it's Canadian.
Oh, it's Canadian.
Or it's a Canadian-produced film, so it is technically international.
That explains
most
the whole
of it filmed in British Columbia.
Yeah.
But the movie itself takes place in Seattle.
Yeah,
That's close enough.
Yeah.
The mansion, house, whatever, that was a normal house, but then they built a mansion exterior to it just for the movie, which cost $200,000.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a decent chunk of the budget there.
Crimson, you said it was taking place in Seattle, but filmed entirely in Canada?
Mostly in Canada. There are...
I think the house was in Denver,
some
Colorado.
shots in Seattle, some
I'm
shots in New
thinking
York.
when Senator's on the phone call, and behind him you can see the Space Needle.
Yeah. So, mostly British Columbia, but not all.
A
little bit of New York.
There is a Space Needle in Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah.
So
that is true.
It could have been filmed, and it still could have been done in Vancouver, Canada, without it being in Seattle.
Looks like exceptions include introductory shooting locations in New York City and establishing shots of Seattle points of interest, including SeaTac Airport, University, Washington Red Square, the Space Needle, the Rainier Tower, and the Lacey V. Murrow Memorial Bridge. And then there were some interior college scenes were shot at the University of Washington, supposedly. So just little stuff, I guess.
They're just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And the ending where the house burns down, they only had one shot for that, obviously. That was not a miniature. That was actually them burning down the whole house.
Good job. I'm very proud of them.
Okay.
George C. Scott, the main actor, he actually learned the musical piece he taught in the class on the piano.
And they cut it off midway through so that
yeah.
It's awesome.
There were 3 writers in this. Russell Hunter was the one that conceptualize the story itself because he said it was based on real events he lived through in 1960 something. I didn't write that one down specifically. I think it was 66. But yeah, he lived in a old place. He even found a hidden room. I don't know how much of it is
You don't know how much
directly
is
correlated to
over?
his event, but he claimed most of this was accurate to his experiences. Fortunately, it's not really backed by anything because his wife was dead, so she couldn't back that up. No one could back up his claims. The other two writers, William Gray and Diana Maddox, this was both their second thing to write for.
What was their first thing?
I don't know. I didn't write that down. This was just their second thing.
You know what?
Nothing of note.
That's
They
a
were not
bad.
recognizable.
That's a good thing to have on your resume. If this is the second thing you've worked on, I'm curious what the rest of your career looked like.
Same with Russell Hunter. The first guy said. Also his second thing and last thing. He only did two things. He was mostly a composer and playwright.
Similar.
Yeah. And that is it for facts. I might sprinkle some here and there if they become relevant. That'll be it. We'll go with, I guess, histories. I'm sure there's plenty of histories regarding this. So let's start with Sinister.
Never heard of this movie. Well, I had heard the name The Changeling, but I thought of the Angelina Jolie movie where her kid gets swapped out, supposedly. So when Crimson brought up this movie, that's the one I went for first, and then he was like, "What are you talking about? That's not at all the movie I'm meaning." And found out there's at least two. There might be. I think we figured out there were several other Changeling movie titles, but at least there was two that are exactly the same, which is The Changeling. So I think I had seen maybe the poster for this and had not connected it at all before, because it does, I think, have a kind of a well-known poster with the wheelchair.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, poster is pretty iconic.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of went in, and all Crimson told me was that if I'm going to watch this, I should watch it at night with the lights off to get the full effect.
I think he pitched that to all of us.
Yeah.
No, he didn't pitch it to me. I just did it unintentionally.
Well, because you already watched it by that point. We're too fast.
Well, I mean, I got through the first half of it. Well, I mean, I did unintentionally. I did watch it in the dark, so.
There you go. So that's about all my history. I had really no kind of going in. I didn't really know what this movie was about.
All right. Sprinks?
Never heard of it. Never seen it. Don't recognize a single actor, director, writer, or anything on it. The only thing that I have history with is the scene of the ball going down the stairs and going up to John. I've seen that scene in my life. I could not tell you where. I don't know if I saw it while I was airing on cable, while I was like at my grandma's house. I don't know if it was like on a TV at like a Radio Shack while my dad was buying something. I don't know if I saw it in a dream. I could not tell you, but that scene is the only thing I know that I have seen.
Okay. Somewhere out there, he has experienced the film a little bit. He has experienced the movie. I guess I'll go next. This film was something I saw when I was maybe around 8 or so, maybe a little younger.
Good grief.
What?
The movie shows like a 9-year-old getting drowned, and you were that age.
Yeah. Look at me now.
All right.
Look at me now.
I mean, I can't really judge. I watched Lord of the Rings when I was way too young, and, monsters were getting beheaded, so.
Yeah, so around that age, I saw it. It is my mom's most feared movie. She loves horror movies, and for some reason, this is the one that gets her. So I kind of forced her to watch it with me on this for the podcast here. So like, I'm going to watch it. Might as well make her watch something she doesn't want to watch.
That sounds like a son getting revenge.
It's just the way Crimson shows love to his mom.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. Anyways, so that was the last time I watched it, and then I saw it maybe about a month ago at this point. I'm like, you know what, this would be a good podcast pick. I'm curious what the guys will think, because I would imagine it's a little dated, because horror has changed a lot since the 80s. So I pitched it, we got it. We're here now.
We're here
That
now.
is pretty much it for me. Writer.
All right, The Changeling. My history of this is non-existent, so it's unsurprising that I'm going last. Yeah, I've never heard this film before. I think I've seen the image of the wheelchair once. It's like a fuzzy image in my head that it tickled something in my memory part of my brain, but I don't think I've seen or heard the film before this point at all. That being said, though, I prefer tension in a horror film. I really quite like tension in horror films, so it did a good job on that, at least that front.
All right. I guess before we start, I did forget one fact that I wanted to bring up. So the location where the house burnt down, obviously, is a lot different now. The gateway that was there is gone. All those trees are gone. It is now a giant house with a large grassy lawn. The only thing recognizable from the movie there now is just the stop sign at the corner of the street. Everything else has changed around it. The house with the well is gone, and that area doesn't look the same. The only thing that's still there is the railroad that was in the background, the railroad tracks.
Interesting.
Every other location, though, the castle or whatever, wherever the senator was.
Yeah.
I forgot what the name of that place was called.
I think it was just like Carmichael's like building or whatever. Like it was he owned the building.
No, but like what it
Not very good.
actually wasn't like.
Yeah, because it's a pretty well-known building.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Filmed in a lot of stuff. Yeah, pretty much every other location they visit is still around, though. Like the Historical Society, that's Hotel Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They even have the sign on it still in this movie.
Hotel Europe.
But the room that they were in there is now a gift shop. There is the last remaining fact for that segment I wanted to share. So we will jump to the movie. We are going with the popcorn act structure because I really like that. So Act 1 is the start to when Claire brings the painting or photograph, whatever it may be, to the house.
Oh god, it's so difficult because I don't know where that is in my notes.
Right before the horse ride.
Yeah.
Right before the horse ride. No, it's yeah.
Okay, well, I don't take my notes like most of us here. I mean, Ryder has,
What, you don't take them in
Digital.
sequential order?
Well, I do, but I don't write down like scene of scene. I just jot down what comes to my mind while watching, kind of thing. So I have 2.5 pages, but I got to figure out where the heck that takes place.
I'll throw out my first. I want to talk about the opening scene, but I actually want to jump to something I really, really loved, and that was the transition using the toy ball.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was a very, very good juxtaposition to the empty house. We got to see it full, what it was like beforehand with the family. We got to see the importance of the ball to our main character, whose name I know I wrote down, Mr. Russell.
John Russell.
Yeah. And then we also get, like, it just contrasts so wonderfully with the now somber tone of an empty house. And, probably can't stand to live there anymore because of all the memories he's constantly being bombarded with.
Which is understandable.
Yeah. So, anyways, I thought the transition was beautiful. It was good. I quite liked it.
The transition from the ball to the flashback, or the transition from the ball and the desks to the airport?
No, the ball in the first act, which is the both kind of. But I'm referring to the first one, which is the ball transition to the flashback and then back to the present day.
Okay, so the first instance, okay, yeah, that's what I brought up. Of the ball coming out of the box or whatever to remind him of his daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
No, you're making me figure this is in a different act. I'm clarifying.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, the beginning first introduction ball.
The first ball.
I guess I'll just bring up an overarching thing for me. I just like how John is so nonchalant in this movie. Because a lot of horror films, the characters freak out all the time, but he just does not care in this, and I love it.
I mean,
he's down in the dumps. Life hasn't been great recently to him, and there's an aspect of him just wanting to help the kid at a certain point. But even before that, he tries to rationalize things like the pipes. Even then, he doesn't think that adds up very well. I like seeing a different type of horror movie character that's not typically depicted.
I mean, his version of like freaking out is he just opens his eyes wide. That's about it. That's
and backs up.
Yeah, backs up, opens his eyes wide. Like he almost looks like a Muppet sometimes when he does that, like a big Muppet.
I think the only time where I think where you can see the like emotion getting the better of him, like playing in his face, is when he's tearing apart the closet.
Yeah,
and also when the thud, when the doon start again, like the thuddings.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely see.
That's more frustration than fear or anything like that. The times I guess he's scared is when the ball goes down the stairs the second time when it's wet. He backs up to the door, and then when he sees the kid drowning in the tub, he just backs up.
Yeah,
eyes wide open, backs up, and then cut today.
He's got a look of rational skepticism throughout most of the film, which I think really, really endears us to him in the sense of like, okay, if he dies, he's not going to die stupidly.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Not gonna have like a.
I don't know, they could have subverted us, but
yeah, like,
I'm kind of happy they didn't.
I honestly thought that was where it was going to go. I was like, okay, probably no matter what, this guy's probably going to die. So don't get too attached.
And he made it.
Yeah. But I concur with your point, Crimson. I guess I'm not used to seeing rational characters in horror movies. So it's nice to have them. Well, I see rational characters in horror games, but not really movies. So I'm familiar with them, but they never really make it over to movies all that often. So it was nice to see.
Well, because usually if they're rational, the movie wouldn't really be, wouldn't be as scary because they wouldn't do the dumb shit that would amplify like the horror or something, or not that it doesn't exist. I'm just sometimes
I put that fault on the writers usually.
Well, yeah, obviously it's much harder to have a competent person in a horror movie than to not have one.
I think. Yeah, but I think, at least for me, when you have a rationally competent character that you can then scare in universe, I think it can make the effect of horror much better.
I agree.
So, I mean, that's why most horror films are just cheap knockoffs of,
the same one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like competent example would be Night of the Living Dead. The main guy in that is fairly competent through most of the movie. I think Sam Raimi struck a balance between competent and incompetent pretty well, where it balanced out enough, where the fear would create the incompetence, but there would still be the logical end of it in the end.
Yeah, that's fair.
Brinks.
Oh, yeah.
I assume you found your spots in your notes. Got anything?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't know. But I'll just go linearly.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a time of the era of 1980s, but the main two, I'm guessing it's John and Claire. The main two actors were named before production companies in the opening credits.
They were both pretty big, especially him. George C. Scott was really big at this time.
Okay, but I guess I should have looked up examples of other films of the time to see if they all did that, or if it was just a time point of that era that they did such a thing. Because it kind of shocked me that those names came up in credits before the presented by in association with companies.
That's fair.
No,
It's unique, I guess. Or
Yeah, I mean, they don't.
It marks the time.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they were still doing that. I think at that point, or something similar. I think it just depended on the company. They know it might have been a Canadian thing, actually, too.
Could be a
George-
Canadian thing.
Could be.
Good point.
George P. Scott and I forgot the actress's name for Claire, but they were both married when this was filmed. I think 2 years before
tell.
this. Yeah.
Oh,
So
the chemistry's real. Nice.
Yeah.
Chemistry's real.
Interesting. I could definitely see more chemistry out of her than him.
well, he is playing a character, not himself.
Yes.
You are a woman in this scene, not my wife.
Yes. You are a friend from the Historical Society.
My friend.
Nice to see some historical societies getting love.
I don't think you can rent out a historical house, can you?
Well,
I think that's illegal.
Shoot, I had an example.
He didn't follow the proper channels.
Well, obviously, yeah, but they did say that it was that if following the proper channels, you could do it.
Yeah.
But
it sort of depends.
I don't know.
I had a friend who once worked at the historical society, or a historical society.
Mm.
It can happen, but it's more like they have to sign clauses to not change things because they want to keep the house closer to its historical, state. And obviously they can't change everything, but they have to follow procedures and stuff like that. So usually it can happen, but it's rare.
One quick aside, George C. Scott was also in the TV movie version of 12 Angry Men from 1997, bringing it all together.
Full circle.
Which juror did he play? Do we know?
He was juror number 3.
Ooh, that would be an interesting performance, I think.
Yeah.
I could see that. The passion.
He does look similar to the guy from I kept thinking he was that guy, and realized he wasn't.
Shall we? I'll go back to talk about the opening, if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
Please.
I thought the opening was kind of funny. It just feels very random at first. Which is, it's just the first shot of it was just, the white covered snow like road and trees. It reminded me of the opening for Hateful Eight, though obviously there's not meant to be any ties directly between the two. But and then we come down to the family that's pushing their car along the road. First mistake on an icy road is you pulled your car up to the near a corner, but it was I guess I realized what was going to happen as soon as he gets into the phone booth and we pan to see the car or truck coming around the corner behind him, or we kind of zoom in.
We zoom in through the phone.
The phone booth.
Phone booth. Yes. Yeah. Went through it. I think it was an interesting shot on that.
Crimson, was that a real car crash?
Well, I didn't see anything on that, so it seemed legit, but I don't know.
I can assume that at least the effects were practical for it.
It seemed meaty. It didn't seem like models.
Okay.
But I don't know the answer.
That must have been one.
Those weren't real people getting run over. I can tell you that.
That must have been one sleepy driver because he had ample opportunity to see them. And
do we get to see the driver? Was he awake?
I don't know. He just pulls off to the side after, and
this is for the niche audience members.
No, I don't remember ever seeing the driver. They were run over.
Well, no. So
Well,
that's
the truck hit their car, which then
Yeah.
hit
ran
them.
them over. Yeah, they
Wait,
got
there were
ran over
people
by their
running
own
them
car.
over?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't see that?
No,
That's why I thought
saw
it was
them
weird.
vanish. They just
Well,
disappeared.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
Okay.
They got smashed.
Oh no, they died. They got hit.
I never saw that.
Well,
It was clear as day. You could see their colorful
Yeah, I
clothing.
didn't see it.
it didn't happen.
I saw the truck hit the back of the car, and I didn't know where they were.
Well,
No, it shows
Okay,
them
yeah.
in front of their own car. The implication is they got run over.
yes, they're not going to actually. I don't think they could practically do that where they actually got hit.
No.
But
No.
Yeah.
But I just didn't see them.
watching it back to back. But yeah, it's what a weird. I'm not complaining because it's
a good hook.
interesting. It's a good hook. It's just a weird normally they just get hit by the car or by the truck. Not like the truck would hit the car and then it would hit them. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, for my niche audience members out there who know the reference I'm about to make, this is the guy who dropped his burger in the Snyder Curse for DC movie.
And that was writer's niche reference to the audience.
It's fairly recent.
I mean,
I
it
see
is, but it's very specific.
Yeah, it's very
There you go.
specific.
It's specific.
It's okay. I'll spoil this for you. It's just weird things happen to DC characters in the Snyder universe that always involves someone getting hit by a fucking truck.
It's an
It's
easy way out.
hilariously dumb, but it's
Like John Wick only getting hit by cars and nothing else.
It's a recurring thing. No, he gets shot by
He
bullets
gets hit
too.
by
Just,
bullets.
Yeah.
but his suit is just
Well,
magic.
once he gets the bulletproof suit, yeah. Before that, it's just getting whacked by cars.
Let me just
What are you
ask this
talking
question.
about? What do you mean? He gets shot.
Rick, so you not remember you and me watching it? And I pointed out every freaking time a stealth car
You
just
did,
whacks
but he
him.
also gets shot. That's why he goes to the doctor to get. It's a different. We'll cover that at a different time.
So a truck hits a car that hits
this
to a
beginning-
mother and daughter. Yes.
This whole beginning scene before the title reminded me a lot of Spielberg's Duel, of how everything was shot on the cars.
Yeah.
A lot of the zoom ins and quick pans. It felt like a very weird cut to the other car coming down the opposite lane, by itself, to then cut back to the telephone booth. Like, it didn't feel like it was needed. I guess it
Sure.
was only presently there to show that the truck didn't swerve or stop kind of because of that car. But I think it could have been edited better.
This might just be my my sick sense of humor, but I just had an image in my mind, and it's not really probably not going to be that funny, but
Go on.
of him, John Russell's character in the telephone booth, but reacting like Sully in Monsters Inc. when the Crusher is crushing up what he thinks is the little girl.
Boo.
That's a
Yeah, boo.
parody.
Yeah, that's just what I imagined just now. Is like, that would have been really good if he just was reacting just really, really viscerally.
Sick, twisted, disgusting, like the rest of us. It's okay.
Yeah.
The way they, I guess, cut the movie here, it really seems like the mom just wanted to
Screwed the
die
little girl,
and
yeah.
take her daughter with her. She dove them
huddle
onto the
behind
ground,
car. Yeah.
and there was time for them to not do that.
It's the same thing as frickin' what's that Ridley Scott Prometheus, where something's falling and they're running forward instead of going to the right or the left where you could easily avoid it or something.
Obviously, in this instance, I think they make a good decision because theoretically they're hiding behind an object. But
Yeah.
it's just very
Unfortunately,
unfortunate.
it's a truck. Yeah, it's a truck, which you're gonna lose. But also, there's a famous Andy Warhol art piece in this the New York scene. Go ahead.
Which one is it?
The Brillo box.
Not familiar.
It's not actually, but he did do a Brillo box, and there is a Brillo box when in the packing scene where he's leaving New York.
Oh, in the apartment.
Yeah, in the apartment. Little joke, but I do like how they handle the this is part of this freaking another time I'm going to be saying this. I like the flashbacks, how they do the flashbacks in this. It's pretty well done.
Okay, I guess I'll bring. How many flashbacks are there?
Just I think there's just the one, isn't there?
Well, there's the kid drowning twice, but
Well, yeah, that's not really a flashback. That's more of
that's a vision.
a vision
of the past.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, what's ever in a flashback? Showing past events, isn't that what a flashback?
The use of this film of the flashback with the daughter in the room,
that's it.
Because of the cut of the ball is like instant, because of the timing. So it's like it quickly came to his mind to show. It wasn't the whole duration of the whole time it was showing the flashback. Time was passing, so it was just like popped in his head, which I did think was very nice that it's instant thought in his head. But that's the only time it's ever used.
Yeah, I think there's really only one that you call a flashback. Everything else is kind of visions. But
which plays later, and unfortunately, don't know if it's in this act or the next, but I'll go off of you guys to know. Where it plays off that same thing again, which made me think I was watching a flashback until something came up where it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it really tricked me.
Yeah, the same thing. I think that's in this act.
Which part are you talking about?
When you first get introduced to the senator, when Claire and the mother are up on the balcony and they're drinking, it's John in his classroom, and I believe all those kids are there because he's
composing.
His wife died. Yeah,
his wife died. Yeah, but he starts beginning, and then it cuts to a party, which gives me the impression since it cut before, and these cuts are very abrupt.
Well,
that's why.
70s, so yeah,
very abrupt. And then it cuts to the party, made me think I was watching another flashback because it's done it before in the film. And then Claire arrives and asks, "How's the house?" And I went, "This is not a flashback. That was a bad cut." Same thing occurs. That's why I was clarifying for you with the ball writer earlier, because the flashback of the two angles, which I really do like, how the first one's in the, I guess, back right corner, looking down on John, and then the ball comes to him and it goes to the opposite corner. I did like that back and forth of the flashbacks, but him putting the ball on the desk, abrupt cut to the airport, I don't think that was edited well.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely kind of a little bit of the time. I think a lot of these cuts are really, really fast, which
I can buy the
works.
airport. I can buy the airport one. I don't think I bought the party one because they use music as the transition.
Yes, the party one is not abrupt to me, but the party one plays off as a flashback with how they've done their cutting.
I disagree.
But it wasn't.
I never ever read that as a flashback because we know going into this that he's at his new job of being the teacher here. So that was his new class. They do. That was his new class.
No, the whole classroom is.
So it wasn't the past.
No.
The party
was present. The way it cuts to the party made me believe it was a flashback. I thought the beginning of the whole party thing was a flashback until Claire was there.
Yes. So everything leading up to it, Springs believes is the present, which is correct. And then he thought when they were going to where they're performing it live or whatever is a flashback.
Because it also did the same as the previous flashback where the music was transitioned into it. It was just odd that it only one use of a flashback for John.
I mean, I'm happy it was just one because I think if it was a whole bunch of flashbacks, it would have been getting really old.
I think it would be okay if it was tied to his relationship with his daughter to his relationship with Joseph.
Yeah, I could see it. I don't know. I just don't. The tone of this movie, I just don't see that working as well.
I think it was a very good decision to have only just the one, but also starting with the hook at the beginning.
Yeah, because we get other hints of his relationship with her, because he's going through his photo album, and then at the horse riding, he references her love of horses. It's not like we see them at the beginning and that's it. I mean, they're referenced. He's crying about them being dead later as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think
kind of played easier to continue to show that it's on his mind, that they're still fresh and still on his mind, even though he had the whole talk of telling himself they're gone. To kind of smooth out throughout the film that they're less on his mind. He's more focused on this case.
Yeah, it
But-
does seem like they kind of disappear like about halfway through the movie. It's not really a thing anymore. Or well, it's still a thing, but it's not like as present, which I guess fits as well, given the focus on the Joseph or whatever his name.
Yes, Joseph the Ghost.
Joseph the Ghost.
I will say, I think it's because of the time as well. That apartment was loud with film grain. Oh my gosh, there are scenes in this film that are so loud with film grain.
Loud.
Yeah, there's some grainy stuff. I would say the beginning as well, him just walking to work or whatever during the credits after the snow
Oh,
stuff.
I thought
Yeah,
that was good
that
because
was very grainy.
that was paired with the piano.
Yeah, that was.
I didn't like the piano on that part. It didn't sound right.
Oh, I thought it was very suiting to the tone. It was very somber.
Well,
I just didn't like the sound mixing on it was the only thing. It worked. I didn't like the sound mixing because it just didn't. It sounded cheap. I don't know. It was weird. And I was like, I hope it's not gonna sound like this throughout the whole film because, and they do. It does sound better as it keeps going, but it's just that one scene or that opening scene. It just doesn't sound quite right.
Oh, interesting. That's kind of coming from you being the music guy.
Yeah.
That's interesting to hear because I'll say this now. I think the score was my favorite thing of this film.
I liked it. I liked
And
the
the best
score.
thing of this film.
I was expecting going into this for you.
I liked it. I like the score. I think it's just that one. It's the mixing on it that I think is wrong. Everything like the notes and everything, perfect. It all suits it very very well. It's just I think that one mixing job on there is just not quite right. I don't really know.
This beginning one.
Just for that beginning one, it gets better as it goes along. But it's
this is for when he's walking through the city at the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah, with the credits rolling.
Maybe I'm thinking. Oh, maybe I'm thinking a bit
I think
different.
there was one odd moment I found, but I don't have as good an ear for music, so I can't really speak much to it.
I do like the fact that he's a piano composer and the score's mostly piano.
I was trying to figure out what his job was.
He's a composer.
Yeah,
now a teacher.
I kept thinking he was like a writer or something. I mean, I guess I was correct.
He is writing music.
Writes music.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I was thinking of a different scene. That sounds fine. There's another scene I think where he's just like playing offhandedly or whatever, and it doesn't sound quite right.
One of his little practicing sessions in his house, maybe.
Yeah. I think that might be it. Okay. You called on me.
You pointed out before we started that you like how they keep a timeline going with dates in this.
Yeah.
And we get a couple dates here in the first act where the house has been in possession of the Historical Society for 12 years. Claire's been a part of it.
They've been in possession for 12 years, and for 12 years nobody's lived in it. So they took it over from the last person.
It was donated by
Bernard.
No, not by Bernard.
I can't remember the name.
Don't mind my notes so well.
Yeah,
it was donated. Once we get to that part of the movie, I'll read the note again. And Claire's been working it for, did you say a year or less than a year? Something
around
a year.
Around a year, yeah.
And she points out that they haven't tried very hard to move this house along, either by renting or turning it into a museum, which was referenced. Mm-hmm. It'd be an interesting museum.
Yeah, because we have.
Place.
Yeah, I've only been to like a couple of like houses that are technically like museums now. Like I went to like Falling Water, and that was kind of cool and everything. It's different kind of situation, I think, for like a house museum, because you're ostensibly going there because all the furniture and everything is like, over 100 years old or something. And it's not quite as interesting as like having like stuff that's like thousands of years old around.
It also kind of depends on like the house, the level of people who used to live there. Because I mean,
like Lincoln's house, you can visit that,
Lincoln's
and it's
house.
like cool because it's Lincoln's house.
Yeah, Appomattox Courthouse you can visit. You can also obviously, you have the big palaces in Europe that you can visit that are technically someone's house.
I like old forts. That's my favorite.
Yeah, me too. I love old forts as well.
But
Um,
it's interesting. I don't really. This one I think would. I probably like this one as a museum. It's got a good architecture.
The interior is all sets. Just set built.
Oh, this is a soundstage.
Sure. They're sets, so yeah, I guess soundstage.
Okay.
I got a bit of a little funny minor thing that I noticed. You can see the cameraman's shadow a couple times in
No.
this movie.
Yeah,
the most blatant one, at least that I could spot, was when Claire was showing Mr. Russell around the house for the first time, and he shows her the music room, and he's walking up to the piano, like cloth or whatever that was covering it, and you can see the cameraman's shadow like retreating on the cloth as he's walking up.
You can.
Ooh, is this a good point for me to jump to a different act?
I mean, if you
If
feel
I
like
have
you'll
permission.
forget it, go ahead.
Writer, bring up Exhibit A and B, please.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Exhibit A, during the median, or the medium shot seance, and you see, I guess, 6 foot tall floating Joseph's point of view entering the room. If you look to the lower left, and this is for YouTube audience where we have our visual.
Yeah, obviously you're watching the movie with us as we're going along.
You could be, or you're driving to work and this is on, or you're getting
Oh,
ice
that's
cream
really
at a
dangerous,
shop
but-
or something. Well, you can listen to a pod while driving. It's fine.
Well, you can't watch a movie while driving.
No, that's why I said if you're listening.
Okay.
This is an audio podcast. But on the YouTube side of things, what you can see, and I'll describe, in the first image, lower left-hand corner, everything looks fine. Everything's good. But then, Ryder, if you go to the second image, you can see in the lower left, there is a head of a shadow in the door frame, causing a shadow to the floor, and no one notices it, which means they can't see Joseph, but being that there is a shadow, to have light effect means that there is a presence there that does affect the lighting, which is an error.
Lower left?
I don't see anything in the lower
I don't
left.
see anything.
You're gonna have to timestamp it for them, Spring.
No, I have the photos.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
have
true.
it. Oh, I see it.
Right, yeah, I forgot it's in our
I
Discord.
see it. It's
If you look to
right.
the left of the shadow of the chair,
Yeah.
the second image has a head.
Okay, I see it. I don't really see it as head, but it is an additional shadow. Okay, yeah.
That is a very promptly one I saw that I know was an error because no one noticed it as like Joseph's in the room, or some kind of presence.
No, I think I caught 4 crew member shadows in this, and both of the ones you guys just pointed out I didn't notice. So
that's
there's a lot of
we're
crew
up,
member shadows
we're
in
up to
this.
6 then.
Yeah, one I do also know is when they first go into the attic, there's a shadow behind the door, which I thought was someone in the room, like a ghost present.
Like someone was about to
wasn't.
whack him over the head. Yeah.
Yeah. But then
There's a lot
it
of-
wasn't
That's
played
the
that
crew
way.
member.
I think you guys have too much free time to watch for this stuff.
That's what we do.
All right, where were we at before we jumped over in here?
We're in Act 1 still, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
The haunted spooky house.
Haunted spooky house.
Skip.
Let's see.
We do get introduced to the senator, Dr. Carmichael.
He's the senator.
Pretty early in this.
I was making a bad Star Wars reference. Go on.
Oh. So they introduced him early, which is nice because he becomes very important later on. I think watching this, I guess it was new for you guys. Did you guys imagine he would have been relevant later from this scene?
I mean, they talk about him kind of like who might be like important just because they're like.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Sorry, you finish.
No, you go. Yeah, you go.
Yeah. I'm good at remembering names when I'm watching something. So once his name came up again out of sight of this, which is when they were doing their research, I think in the newsroom, that's when I realized he was going to be very important to the story.
I knew he was going to be connected in some form or matter by the way that the dialogue of Claire and John were going about it, but I didn't know if it was to the point. And someone correct me if I'm incorrect here, but I believe it's in Cable Guy. Ben Stiller has a somewhat cameo that plays throughout the news, where it's a story ongoing, but it doesn't really affect things. And I didn't know if it would be something along that lines.
A background story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, she did say that he was on like the board of directors of the Historical Society, which
I figured he would pop up again for sure.
yeah, I mean that's not that weird because he's the governor, right? Or senator? He's a senator.
Senator.
Yeah, senator. Which is not that weird because usually they are involved in whatever the the big kind of town society stuff is. So not that weird, but it did strike me as somewhat odd why he would have a investment in the Historical Society in some way. So
By the way, Crimson, good news. I did find my notes. I found a horse comment I have.
Nice.
So I know where the
Wonderful.
horse part is. And you
Those
said the horse
horses
part
were-
is right after the painting?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Before that,
perfect.
they talk
All
about
right.
the ball.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know where my notes are. I'm good.
Woo!
I got act
Good
one.
when we're closing in on the act, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, it
and
tells me what we can still talk about.
yeah. So,
Uh,
well, I guess you got something then.
Yeah, go.
Okay, so John's practicing on the piano and realizes a dead key, or could have been a shot string in the piano, that then hauntingly plays itself. It never shows John going back or noticing that it now works later.
He kind
Like
of.
he's just playing normally.
I think he does actually. So somewhat. Not it.
Not
It could be
blatantly.
read as. Yeah. Not. Yeah. It could be read as that. It could not be. But he kind of like. He's practicing that like scale or whatever, kind of in that. What could or couldn't be that register later on, and it seems like he's like going over it. Like I think this was a bum note before, but
Okay, I didn't see
No,
it plays.
no,
I thought
no.
he was too focused on
Yeah.
just making sure the recording of whatever
yeah.
he was doing was correct.
Yeah. I have that's and outside of writing it for the the writers at this point, so I don't. It could be, it couldn't be.
A lot of people, at least based off what I was looking up for this, a lot of people source this and Amityville Horror as like
Haunted house.
artist, like what's the word I'm looking for? Darn it, I can't think of the word. But pretty much the origins of the haunted house like subgenre, because haunted house movies happened before, but this set up a lot of the tropes and stuff. Apparently,
Like ooh and ah.
ooh, wow.
Yeah, ooh and ah, the
What
tropes.
Because we get to see some like the door opening, it was spooky. I'm sure that happened before.
Oh, that was the draft.
The piano
Those are-
key. Yeah, it
What-
wasn't
how did they
Mr.
get a-
Tuttle. I know that.
How did they get a giraffe in the house?
No, not a draft. Sinister, not a draft.
I know.
We're gonna
Who got the door? Huh? What?
Oh.
It's a,
Uh,
yeah, that was a little tidbit.
I
That's a good
actually
little tidbit.
I got a nice little. I actually want to praise, I guess, the kind of tone, I guess, would be the correct. It's character tone, so it's like gives a good insight to what the character is actually feeling. But he's all smiles and pleasantries like during the party, and then it cuts to him like driving home in the rain, alone in the car with the piano music playing. I think it's a very good juxtaposition to show what he's actually feeling in his mental state. And just the slow meandering of him, like closing the garage door to his car and then walking back, at a very very wide sort of shot to follow him. I think the shot kind of implies an unusual presence, but I do like it. It makes it very somber, so we get a nice insight to his character. Because I think that's when he hears the thudding the first time as well. It kind of cuts to him waking up to that sound.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which we figure what that's connected to. Weird.
I'm
I didn't
glad
admit.
it's not my prediction of what I
Oh.
wrote down. I wrote down a prediction of what I thought it could be, and I'm glad it wasn't that.
Thought it was a ball bouncing.
And he thought it was fornicating mice. I think. Probably his getting
Fornicating
some
mice.
pipes.
Ball bouncing.
Thanks for that.
I hope the painting was not like his future self as a ghost painting on stuff.
Weird.
That's what I
that is
wrote down.
out there.
Yeah.
A nice theory though.
So why wouldn't you want it to be that?
Yeah, that's
Because
pretty cool.
I didn't want something to do with like time
The future.
travel.
I mean,
Or
that's fair.
something like-
Yeah.
Of his like the
Yeah.
haunting is of himself.
What's the
I guess
movie that does
I
that?
would have
can't
accepted a
remember.
little more if it was played off as like a hallucination, that the ghost is just all in his head. But I wrote it down as a thought, and I'm glad it wasn't that.
The movie
what-
that does that? I can't remember now.
Something I think it's right after the Mr. Tuttle like leaves for the day in the draft. There's the music playing, like the eerie kind of Joseph theme, and there's like an exhale noise, like someone breathing out. I couldn't tell if that was just the ghostly presence making noise or that's a part of the music.
I think it's the. If it's anything, it's probably the ghostly presence, or it's a accidental. At the
Oh, I don't think it was accidental.
Well, I know.
But I don't know if it's
well-
background music or it's supposed to be audible noise to be picked
can't-
up.
Picture what you're saying, so I don't know. But there are several moments where you can hear Joseph just passively, so it might be him.
Okay.
But I'm not sure because I don't know what you're talking about.
Did anyone find John's jokes to the classroom really that funny, or?
No.
I mean, it's a teacher joke.
I know, yeah, but it brought the house down, is what I'm saying.
I mean,
Literally,
you're
at the
gonna
end.
you're gonna laugh at the guy who's in charge of giving you grades, okay?
I guess you're right.
It's not raining outside. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
yeah, they were
it's
laughing
a
before he even got. Yeah, they were laughing before he even got to the punchline of what he was talking about.
Your family's dead.
Jesus.
They could have been laughing about that before he entered the room. We don't know.
It was odd that there was. I kind of wish they had explained why there was so many freaking kids in there. Like if he was famous. I mean, like fame is
I mean,
famous,
the
not just
implication
like.
is he's just a really, really good composer. Like he's well known.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Oh, I think it was because he was making news that he came back after losing his wife and daughter.
Yeah.
either way, there's
So I
some
think-
infamy to
yeah.
him. There's notoriety.
Yeah.
So
No,
Yeah.
when he said that only 23 people have signed up for his class
That was-
and it was
that was-
packed, I don't think they're there for the music.
No, that was a joke. I think.
Oh,
Yeah, I
you
don't-
thought that was a joke?
Well, I don't know. It's again, that's the problem when they're all laughing. Everything seems like, he's just being funny or whatever.
See-
But if he's being honest, it sounds weird.
the strange thing
Oh,
is, I've had
every
those.
every single quote unquote joke he was telling, I thought was just him giving a fact.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm so confused. I was like, "What's supposed to be funny? I can't tell."
I think it works mostly because I'm again.
Oh, yeah.
I've had college experiences like that where only 23 people have signed up for this room, and I can tell there's like 60 of you sitting up there. Because I've been in one of those grand lecture halls where I've been sitting in to get into class. It's quite a fun experience, but
It's the weird. I think it's the juxtaposition of he's set up to be kind of so depressive, and then kind of he's making jokes, and they sound like they could be like actual things, and then they're not. I don't know. It's the weird.
I mean, like in the vein of where Sprinks is right, they're there because they're aware of him. They've seen him in the news. That obviously has helped diffuse the tension. Like I'm still here, trying to do my thing, do my best. So that could be read as a character thing as well.
Yeah.
So
He's like, I'm gonna play you a song that you all recognize, and then it's gonna be
Cut to the
a
orchestra.
orchestral piece, which
The
I do like that.
transitional piece.
I like that. It's a good cut, even though it's confusing. It's a
what-
good cut.
That's what helped me with the thought of flashback, because it's a piece he said you'd recognize to cut to an orchestra of the same piece. So I'm like, oh, maybe this is where he learned it from, or he's a part of the orchestra.
It is set up for like a flashback potential, but I'm
Just a
kind
weird
of
cut.
yeah.
The fact
I'm-
that it wasn't was a weird cut.
It's not that weird.
I
It's
don't
a
think
good,
it is.
It's I'll grant you, it's it's not it's confusing slightly, but I think it's a good cut because it still works even if it's not a flashback.
It works with the transition of music, but with the previous shown flashback, it's interesting to use where it isn't the case. And that there isn't another flashback. Like there's no like constant confusion of what is and what isn't a flashback because there's only one used in the film.
I think they needed to use a filter to
A
show
filter
what
could have helped. A lower saturation or something.
yeah,
I mean,
or like
is,
a
is
wide
not
angle.
is not Claire telling coming up and saying, "Oh, how has the house been like these past few
Yeah,
weeks?"
yeah, that's yeah.
Like for me, that was clear enough. Like I didn't, even if you were like on the fence, that should have been like that should have dispelled any confusion.
No, that's what I said earlier. I didn't know until Claire came up and asked about the house. That's
Okay.
when I realized, oh, this isn't a flashback.
Okay, so why is everything before that then considered a problem as you perceive it as a flashback?
Because of how it's edited. Because it was edited the same way with the daughter with the ball.
Yeah, but this one,
Which
but
was
this
edited
one,
the
but this
exact
one, there's
sounding.
literally something in the script to tell you it's okay. It's not though.
Later down the line, which takes it out. They didn't cut immediately to Claire like talking to John at the party and like getting him out of his stance or like him thinking of something or going from the orchestra to Claire. It goes from the orchestra to John, which could play it off. John was just in that piece and people are congratulating him on it. But then it goes to Claire talking about the house.
To be fair, he is in the audience with the guy and his wife who he was with earlier, and his wife and daughter are not there. So there is technically an earlier clue that it's not a flashback before the whole Claire thing. But I'm willing to admit that it almost sets it up like a flashback. But I think once you realize it's not a flashback, I think that edit still really works really well, and isn't off-putting. That's my stance.
All right. Well, it didn't work for me. Worked for you.
There you go. That's fine.
Since we jumped from it fairly quickly, I did have one piece for when he was walking from the garage to the door, and it was dark out and everything. I was going to point out that I don't think that's a shot we'd get anymore. I think that would have been trimmed or removed because I think a lot would consider that too long now.
Which one? The one where he parks his car in the garage?
No,
yeah, he locks it,
He
locks the front
all the way
all
to
the
the house.
The camera just stays on him. Yeah.
I think that's good to help show the size of the house.
Well, I like it. I think it's good. I'm just saying I don't think that would happen now. I think that is a shot of the past.
He would pull his car in. They would cut there. They would show him walking, getting out of his car, and then they'd cut to him going into the house.
Yeah, I think when the first introduction of Claire showing him the house, that something like that shot would have been shown during there, probably with like a voiceover act of like Claire talking inside the house to John. I think modernizing it would have been like that, so you can still get the house and kind of make it a little faster with dialogue, opposed to this of showing John. But then again, this part does, as you say, is a little outdated with they wouldn't use it anymore, but I do think it's used to help give a tone of eeriness of how kind of alone he is in a big place.
Yeah, I like the shot as well. There's a lot of like there's a lot of long wide shots in this film that I really really like. That Roger Ebert did not, by the way.
Are you gonna drop the hot take?
Oh, is this where this coming in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So may as well drop it in.
Drop it.
He's Medic. I'm going to quote him directly. Medic, referring to Peter Medic, the director, is a little too fond of wide-angle shots. His choice of lenses make all the rooms look wraparound, and he says it's too basic of an approach for the haunting genre, pretty much. Which is
By the way, hopefully, sorry to cut you. Hopefully, everyone listening knows who Siskel and Ebert are. Two very pretty much famous critiques, who I respect and mostly a lot, and I'm sure all of us here respect.
I respect them, but I mean, they get stuff wrong.
They're not infallible.
Every single one of their takes is correct. Like, I'm not agreeing with everything they've critiqued, but I'm saying that they are critiques that we do like.
Yeah. I remember
that's his like that's his what is it? Okay, I'm trying to figure out best to phrase this. That's the take that I was 50-50 on his other take on this film, I disagreed with completely.
We're gonna
Which-
get that later.
Am I correct, or am I putting words in your mouth?
About the critics.
Yes.
I don't know if I've heard any of their things.
Critics are known
I
to
apologize.
criticize.
The three of us here, besides Crimson.
Yes. Well, I mean, I tend to agree with, let's say 75% of probably what they viewed. But I mean, it's all personal opinion. It's nothing's.
I can't
100%.
recall if it was Ebert.
Roger Ebert.
I feel like there was someone who was against Ghostbusters, and what they took, or something like that. I can't remember.
So there was a part you disagreed with.
Oh yeah, but that can wait till later. That
later.
one's much more of a hot, spicy take.
Hot, spicy take.
Yeah. So I kind of agree with you, Kerms. Kind of pull us back to the wide angle shot. The closest equivalent that I could think of in quote unquote modern movies is the long transitional pieces in Lord of the Rings of basically them walking to and from a place. And even then, that's intercut with lots of swelling music and stuff like that. And I think that's the only equivalent that I can think of. Almost equivalent, anyway. Because they're both giving that wide shot while also giving us a tone of what we're supposed to feel.
There are some wide shots used in Sound of Music.
Yeah, but this is after that. We're talking... I'm sorry, that's before this. We're talking more like, recent films that have tried to emulate something similar.
Oh, after 1980.
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
I mentioned this is kind of like a dead shot, the way they did it.
Yeah, long takes are kind of
I think,
kind of a dinosaur now.
I think
Writer?
the only... Sorry.
Oblivion.
Yes, I was actually gonna say Oblivion, and I think Men from A24.
Ooh,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Man,
Men has a couple.
There's a couple
of long takes.
long takes. One with her at the end of the tunnel.
And then the
That's
kitchen
an
with
easy
the naked
one.
guy in the background, I think, is also kind of a long one.
Yeah,
There's a
that
couple.
was a
There's a couple
long
in there.
Hand track, yeah.
But yeah, there's a few long cam tracks in there. I think that's more definitely an A24 thing that I've seen a lot of. And you're right, Springs. Oblivion's a good one.
Oblivion does it a lot for that artistic looking wallpaper usage.
It's got that.
but-
It's got unironically. That's what they did in Oblivion is before the volume that they built for things like The Mandalorian. That was almost the pre-volume what they did in that film.
Yes. Comment below if you'd like to see us cover Oblivion, because that's a film. But we shouldn't go too heavy into that.
Yeah.
But it is I will say it's a thing where I feel like long takes are kind of, and you could make the argument that it's kind of meandering or it's unnecessary or something. But I do think sticking with a character through a scene in like kind of one shot and following, there is something to that is very interesting, and it creates a very nuanced kind of feeling or emotion, or it does something that I think is necessary when it's necessary. And I think to kind of just say, oh, I'm not going to just be like, yeah, we're not going to do that because we can just edit it so that it flows faster. It's like, well, yeah, but there's something missing there if you don't do it in that way, if it needs to be that way.
It's been a while since I've seen Scott Pilgrim. I think Scott Pilgrim follows Scott at the party, right? Do we follow
It
him at the party?
cuts.
Okay.
It cuts though, yeah.
Okay.
Very classically Edgar Wright cut. But yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, actually, here's a good shot. Baby Driver, when he's walking to get coffee at the beginning of the film after the first heist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one. But yeah, Edgar Wright, I was like, if Edgar Wright had to have done that at some point. It was running through my head.
Well, are you mean more of a panned shot or wide shot than tracking shot? Correct? Not a following.
Yeah, because this one's not really following him. Like, it's the camera's following him in quotes,
Shaun
but
Shaun of the Dead following Shaun to the convenience store, that's not...
That's different.
That's different, okay. Because that's a very long tracking shot.
Yeah. Because this one's more like, it's following Mr. Russell's movements from the garage to the door, the camera, but once it's like panned out, it stays panned out. So... Yeah.
Yeah. I do like the transitional piece though of John recording piano music to then cut to the piano still playing, but it's now the recording that he's done while he's on the stairs.
Or that's not a
He's sitting on the
flashback.
stairs. No, because that's a smooth transition of John in present of still being in the house, and then Claire arrives. There's no dialogue until Claire arrives. I think it would have helped, even to touch on the one where I got fooled as a flashback. I think it would have helped if he said he's going to a concert. Like if he told the kids, he's like, all right, and remember this weekend at blah, blah, blah concert hall, they're going to do a piece that I just covered. And then it cuts to that. I think that would have been smoother to use. That way I know we're there, we've jumped to that time.
Yeah. There's, man, I think there's enough context clues still for that though. Like I understand that you were confused by it. Like I'm because Sinister was right when he pointed out the audience one where he's by himself, and then there was another one I think in his first conversation with the other teachers.
Yeah, but I think Sprinks' argument is
the
fact of there even being a confusion is
it's mostly placed onto the editing.
Yeah. All right, I think that's all I got for the act.
Yeah, much left for anyone? Act one.
That's where my notes end before the horses.
Did we see what was the photograph of that Claire stops by to give him of the house?
It looked like it.
I believe it was, yeah.
Okay.
What we know for certain is that it belonged to the house, so it's something that was there before.
Okay. Yeah. Then I don't have much.
Yeah, I guess for me, I kind of touched on it, but I didn't really talk about it. Him trying to debunk everything, debunk everything. I liked the pipes. He immediately got Tuttle to figure out the problem. He didn't really buy his answer of it's an old house. It makes sounds. It's got routines.
I'll be right back. I apologize.
All right. And the door opening suddenly, he went to check if Mr. Tuttle was there, and then Mr. Tuttle showed up behind him and asked if anyone else was in the house, and he said no. So I just like how much he thinks. The one that stops him from that is once he sees the kid in the tub, which is in the next act, obviously. Then he's like, all right, this is too much now. And look into this. And regarding to before the horse riding bit, Claire finds the ball in the desk credenza thing. I don't know. Is that a credenza? I don't know.
Oh, good question. Is that a credenza?
Is that a credenza?
I don't think so. John doesn't hit it 5 million times.
Yeah.
No, I think
I don't
it was.
know. I'm not good with furniture.
I think it was just it wasn't a roll top desk. I think it was just a standard, not school desk. It's lengthier than a school desk, but it's that,
The
just
top.
that top part. So, but I don't think it's a credenza. No.
She found the ball. She kind of scoffs at it, like, "Why is that in there?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, that was my dead daughter's." I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, you want to go horse riding? You want to go horse riding?"
John doesn't give a lot of emotion when he's in the presence of something. Even the presence of Joseph, who's invisible, he's very collective. When he thinks he's alone, then he gets emotional. At least I think so.
For the most part, other than when he's yelling at Joseph.
That's true.
But other than that, I agree. Sinister, did you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think I covered most of it.
All right, Act
Act 2. Which is where we left off here. Pretty much the horse stuff. To when
just horse stuff.
Yeah, actually, just in case to clear up confusion, the whole credenza, which seems out of the blue, and we discussed, went over it. The credenza is a callback to us covering "Living with Yourself." In case you haven't heard that episode, we did.
Credenza.
Yes. With Paul Rudd. This act, is the horses to learning about Bernard at the Historical Society. Bernard is the father of the daughter that died with the coal car.
Yeah,
I thought he was.
So when they're flipping through the paper, is what you mean?
Yeah, pretty much stops right before the newspaper. Yeah.
And here
Right
I
before,
thought
okay, gotcha.
I thought Bernard was an elf.
He could be.
Well, Bernard's an elf. Bernard is an older gentleman with a wife named Rose, and they're very happy, living together on an island for quite some time. They kind of adopted a dog named Vincent.
Kind of. Alright, so Act 2, Frank, you go.
Oh, sweet! I can go anywhere here, huh? Let's see.
You know where the act ends in your notes.
Yes, well, it's essentially where I quote the quote I did at the cold open today. Oh boy, what to cover? Let's go to something that I thought was weird. When Claire came to check the house, to go to the attic and see everything, why the hell is she checking and visiting at night? It seems she came out of her own will to come and check out the house. She wasn't called by John, not like an emergency. And they're not the point where they're kind of in a relationship where call me when there's a problem, because she doesn't know about Joseph that well. She just knows something's up with the house. But she's there at night in a thunderstorm. I think it was very just used for the eeriness of the outside environment than to fit what Claire's character would do at that point.
Has he already... hello, I'm back. Is he already complained to her at the Historical Society at that point?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't know which part this is.
I'm a little like...
No, this is the part when Claire goes, I want to see the room.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh,
I thought you were referencing when she was by herself. I'm like, that's like towards the end.
No, where she's just like, I want to see the room. But
Oh,
it's at
see.
night, and it's in a thunderstorm. I was just confused why this wasn't during the day. Why is she there so late?
I mean, it kind of depends on when... when John... I can't remember his name. Presumably he
Russell.
told her... Yeah. Presumably he told her about it to get her there.
And she came
So-
straight over?
Why not?
Because it's
If one of you
10
told me,
o'clock
oh, I
at night.
found this secret room in my house, you should check it out. I'm like, all right, when you want me over?
You'd be like, I can do it tomorrow.
No, I would say what I just said, and I said, well, when you want me over?
Oh, and if I said right now, you'd come over right then at 10:30 at night?
If I have
No
the
way.
ability. If I have the
Absolutely
ability.
no way.
If I drove, yeah, I would.
No way.
Yeah.
Highly doubtful.
He's already...
Okay, well we have. Okay, so apparently we have to do an experiment now where we do this. Somebody's at
Yeah,
So find a
good
secret
experiment.
room.
Man,
I'd
I'd love you
Give
to
me a
say
car and
okay to
license.
Ryder. I'd love Ryder to call you and you say sure.
Shut up. Flying somewhere and then driving a...
It's okay. I'm
I don't
not
know
important
how
enough. It's
far.
fine.
Yeah, I see.
What her business.
We're getting Crimson's friendship tier list. Ooh boy.
Wow, do I buy a plane ticket or drive 10 minutes somewhere? Wow.
Oh, so it's about time.
But yeah, she lives.
Okay,
She lives nearby.
Yeah,
It's
Anyway,
about-
I think it's weird that she's doing it at night before the even presence of knowing Joseph.
She's
Like,
also into
out there
history. She's part of the History Society. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't
she
she just
just
want to
said
check
so-
it out?
So there is actually some precedence for this, Springs. This conversation at the Historical Society has already happened, where he's asking about, am I crazy? Or have there been any odd things happening in the house?
True.
That conversation has already happened at the Historical Society. So he's already been smoking on the rooftop and stuff like that with her.
Yes,
So there's
the mom
Taking a
present
leaf.
who's
Yeah.
trying to hide stuff.
Yeah, I think there's enough precedence for her to want to investigate this now. Now that he knows he's having trouble, and also that she lives nearby, both those things together, I think more than enough are to warrant her visiting.
I still think it was played off simply for the eeriness of a thunderstorm.
Oh, the thunderstorm
At
being
nighttime.
external is definitely there for the eeriness. Yeah. One thing. What is it called? I had something and it's gone, so never mind.
No. Hate when that
I love it
happens.
when that happens.
Right?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
I could get to another
Oh.
point. Never
Oh.
mind. Ryder just said, "Oh,
Yeah, I got
Ryder's
it.
You found it.
I found it. Yeah. So I like that he, it cuts from basically the horse to him waking up crying in bed, and then the house, more or less starts crying with him. I put in quotes because the water's running. in the faucet, and I think that's what leads him to the first experience in the bathroom upstairs, right?
Mm,
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
No, that
No,
was
that's
the
when
the night after that.
that's when all his friends leave.
Well, his
Oh,
students.
his students.
The
Yeah.
students. Oh, okay,
They can
okay.
be
All
friends.
right, yeah,
Students can be friends. No, they can't.
yeah, they can. All right, okay. I was just making sure I got those the right.
The pipes do make the thumping noise, though. That
The
interrupts
thumping?
them. The thumping.
Something's up here.
I mean, like it as I think it's they say it during the seance that the house is trying to reach out through him through his grief. So
Yeah, it does. It does.
it's well timed. The when he's crying, the dun 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 starts again.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, and I do like how they show that it's 6 o'clock in different ways. That the first thump thump was an analog clock, and might have been the kitchen or something.
Mhm.
Over a doorway, there was an analog clock that showed 6 o'clock, and then here, the crying bit, we see an alarm clock
Digital.
that shows 6. Yeah,
Which is nice.
so it's
I
not
do
just
like
showing
that.
the same clock each time, referencing time.
Which brings up the
I'm-
question: was Joseph drowned at 6 in the morning?
I would imagine.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
His father was very
Otherwise, then
punctual.
it's just a random weird time.
It's not confirmed, but it's a good theory to have because there's nothing to
Pretty
dispute
safe
it.
bet
Yeah.
because they're consistent with it being a specific time. If it happens whenever, then it kind of just doesn't matter anymore. Since they are focusing on a time, I think it's correlated.
Is it 6? Is it 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night? Like every time the clock strikes.
No, I think it was only in the morning with the banging.
Okay.
The
Never
Go
mind.
ahead.
Crimson, no. Crimson, you go. I'll go after.
I'm host. You go.
Oh, okay. Oh, jeez. For John's horse to be in the shot, was it eating something?
It was
I
eating
guess
leaves off the tree.
That's what it was doing? Okay, because its mouth was out of shot, and I didn't know if it had to be fed to be still or to be around John.
Oh, you mean later once they're just having their talk?
Yeah.
That I don't know. I know
Because
on
her
their way
horse
there.
is totally fine, and his horse is like head down moving.
Yeah, I assure you, horses will just snack as soon as they're stopped.
When he was walking the horse there with her, it was eating leaves off a tree right next to them. So maybe it was doing that as well during that bit.
Okay.
Speaking of the
Yes,
horses
okay.
scene, I don't know how intentionally this is written or not. I would imagine it is, but he mentions how his daughter loves horses and not loved, so he still sees her, speaks of her in present tense and past tense.
It's a
Nice.
good catch.
It's a good detail.
I like it.
Yeah.
Something I wrote down, I guess, with the shoot, what was it? The a couple of things. Two things. Right after the students leave with their stringed instruments, the score changes from piano majorly to stringed instruments majorly, and I like that. That those were in one scene. Well, it was mostly focused on piano with some strings in the background, so it's not just piano being played in the score. But then went all together of strings and piano to afterwards being slight piano in the background, but mainly focused on strings. So I like that like background composed transition used, shown visually through the scene. But when the water faucets start to, as Ryder said, to get him up to the attic, the first faucet from the kitchen to him coming out when he goes past the downstairs mirror, I wrote that down. I'm like, that mirror's got to be used for something. Because I almost jumped. I'm like, that would have been so well done if there was like a ghost in the mirror for like that split second he walked by it. It would have been so cool. But it's just his reflection. I'm like, they better do something with the mirror later.
Oh, they do.
Do you get payoff?
They do.
They do.
And
So
I think
they
later
do.
in my notes I wrote, I knew it. So.
I knew it. Fucking knew it.
I thought the use of faucets in the bath, like the water running, I thought that was the I said the house reaching out in grief, but I thought it was like mimicking his crying as best as it could. almost. Outside of obviously drowning in a bath, but I assumed that was
outside of that. Yeah.
yeah. I kind of
that could
drew
be
that
an element.
connection. Yeah.
I will say the shot of the bathroom where it's just like the stationary camera from a semi-high position with just the bath and the sink running with the lighting they had in there was pretty eerie. It was before it was shown that the kid was in there. It was good.
How would you guys feel if like a old lady came up to you and was like, that house you're in shouldn't have been given to you, and then she proceeds to tell you a little bit about it, and then immediately stops when you ask, who else lived in that house? Did anything else happen in that house? And she just walks away.
Around and walks away.
Yeah.
I mean,
An NPC
why did
from
you?
a game.
Yeah.
That's when you save the game and you
Save the game.
Yeah, I would have gone up to Claire and been, "Your mom's really weird."
That wasn't her mom.
Oh, that wasn't her mom?
No.
Whole movie, I thought that was her mom.
No. Her mom was the one at the orchestra.
Those were two different people.
And the
Yes,
seance.
they are
that was two different people.
Yeah, they are two different people.
Oops.
Whoops.
I thought they were the same actress.
I'm gonna go edit those notes.
No, it's not. It's not a big difference, but I thought they were the same person.
Yeah, those are two different ones. Well, I mean, she even comes out on to the balcony or whatever they were on, and is like, "Your mom's on the phone. What do you want me to say?" She's like, "Hold on, I'll take it." And then she talks to.
She was throwing her voice.
Yeah, I do think I would have probably left the house at some point. Then again, I've been in haunted houses, like real haunted houses before, so I'd still probably not want to live there.
So, it's just like, there's that classic movie trope. You really shouldn't be living in that house. What do you mean I shouldn't be living in that house? Can't say anymore, and then walk away.
At least in this one, they actually give her a reason to why she shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah,
which is something they don't usually do.
Yeah, it's true.
Writers were not
He has
lazy.
motives.
Modus operandi.
I think she also told him that's what the house wasn't leased properly.
That she pushed the papers through or whatever.
Yeah. Didn't go through the proper channels.
I was trying to figure out why he went in the closet.
Well, he probably heard the banging coming from that direction.
Well, because the glass, explodes out, from the inside.
No. Okay, yeah. So the whole glass thing, the reason why he ended up finding is because he was trying to find where that window was. So that's what led him eventually to the.
He used the science of deduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that glass break ghostly activity?
Yes.
I know ghostly activity to cause the break, but was it ghostly activity to cause where the glass was to land? Because if not, that is some dumb luck that the far left piece of red glass went far right past the front door.
This is where I'm going to simply cite the teleportation of the ball. It could easily be ghostly.
I was gonna say no. I think that was the prop guy who did that. I don't think that was ghostly.
Yes,
but I also ran to see if it was just like the ghost punching the window, or if he threw an object. It was just a force.
The force.
It was of course the force, because later we see a damn explosion.
Well, yeah.
I don't think Joseph had 64 rounds of dynamite or something.
I will say I'm a little. It'll be more apparent later. I'm a little disappointed about the lack of rules as far as the ghostly power. It seems to not have any real cap on it.
It seems very kinetic. I don't understand what you mean by explosion in the springs.
We'll get there, but at the very end.
The room blows up at the end, and that Spencer, whatever his name was, dies. Senator.
Okay, maybe. Okay.
Yeah. And Joseph's like, "I'm so weak. Help!"
Very
making noise, and then he can conjure up like a monsoon wrath of wind.
They can, The only excuse that I would be able to have for the explosion causing is that this is an old house. It probably runs on gas.
Well, yeah.
But the gas would not be stored up there.
But there's a lot of dust in that room. Dust ignites.
You're right. It's all
That
black
would have been
powder.
a flame. That would have been a flame. That wouldn't have been an explosion. Dust doesn't have force.
It's all black
What are you
powder
talking about
dust. I don't know what you're
explosion?
talking about.
There's no explosion though. I don't know what you mean. Everything just catches on fire.
There's to an explosion. It blasts the whole window out.
Well, yes,
But he can do
at that point,
technically.
not later on
No,
when the
it
house
just
is burning down.
It moved the wall as well. It
Yeah.
wasn't just the glass of the window.
They also didn't have CGI yet, so they couldn't like edit out a punching hand going through. It had to be an explosion because you can't actually punch through glass and have it not cause damage. It's a ghost. Anyways, the other thing I was going to talk about is he was really impatient to get to that door because he just knocked over that whole shelf with everything on it instead of just taking it all off.
That's true.
Really messy.
Well, then
And Mr.
again,
Tuttle-
if you've been following water faucets turning themselves on throughout this house,
Seeing a dead kid in a
A
tub.
bathtub. Yeah.
yeah,
And also,
Which-
people that you're asking to about evidence, one's telling you have no idea, the other one's telling you, I know, but I'm not going to tell you. It's
Yeah,
kind of following
yeah.
your own leads.
and again, seeing a ghost kid in a bathtub, which at the point at the end of the movie, no, it's because of Joseph. It wasn't a hallucination because I thought it may have just been a hallucination in his mind. The fact that he has no reaction, he just backs up slowly.
He just does the
I mean,
wide eyes. He's just
how
like,
would you react to that? I'm just like,
I'd
"What?"
probably scream. There's a kid in the bathtub. That's
I'd
pretty
I'd
spooky.
probably back away more quickly. That's what I would do. I don't know if I'd scream. I just wouldn't want to attract attention.
I'd be shocked.
I would probably be like, and get the fuck out of there. I wouldn't stick around.
And then you find out the next day when the police are there that there was actually a kid drowning in your tub, and you just left it.
Well, whatever.
Well, he
It
also
wouldn't be
was
my
still,
fault. He's illegally trespassing. Yeah.
It was a still underwater of Joseph. It wasn't Baning or I guess his feet hanging over the edge of the tub. Like it wasn't his whole body. It was just a reflection under the water.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that because of the camera angle, but I'm believing because of I guess John's reaction.
I mean, that kid, best actor in this whole movie, he played dead really, really well.
I think this is when he gets the lock. Well, when the lock magically opens.
Yeah.
I like that the door kind of opens on its own for him.
He was bashing that lock
Yeah, like
so
when he
weakly.
when
He
he
was
was
like,
when he goes.
It
for
was
the-
restrained, yeah.
Yeah, it was restrained. But when he like the door opens by itself, I thought it was pretty creepy. I did like that.
yeah.
It reminded me of something out of Clue.
Why-
It's like heavy
Why would you
action
make
on a
that
door,
connection?
and the door just slowly opens on its own.
I don't remember
Okay.
that.
Okay.
been a while,
What
though.
movie doesn't this movie remind us of? I think we've had
Okay,
a lot
well-
of asides here.
I will tell you what this movie reminded me a lot of, which is probably why I found this movie to be humorous at points where it probably was not. It's a pretty serious film of the depiction of ghosts and everything, but it reminded me a lot of The Ghost and Mr. Chicken,
Yeah, I think you.
and that's why I found a lot of it funny.
What year did that come out?
66.
1945. Oh,
45.
wouldn't that be a coincidence?
I agree. The door opening after him, that was a solid shoulder bash to that door, that first hit he did.
Those first
Yeah.
2 hits that he did.
You think somebody was like holding the door back?
Something would be keeping it closed,
Could
I
be.
guess. I don't know. Did anyone see the handle move, maybe? when they opened
I
it?
think they had it.
I like
it's a handle move.
the handle turned.
Briefly, but yes.
The ghost did it. But
The
yeah,
ghost did
a good shoulder bash. If that door just opened after me shoulder bashing, then I am leaving the room. I'm not going upstairs.
Look at the way it opened magically. I'm like,
Yeah.
at that point, you're in for a penny or for a pound. I guess it would be a coin flip for me on whether I'd continue on or not. I'd probably want company before I went upstairs. But
That's exactly what I'd say. I would not do it by myself.
yeah, I wouldn't do it by myself. There we go.
No, he was
which
like,
brings
man,
up-
I'm really delayed.
brings up the part of my notes that I wanted up for kind of a discussion. What's scarier, attics or basements? Because a lot of
That's
horror
just how
movies
it's
play
depicted.
the use of both.
I think a basement.
And they're both
is
pretty much
scarier.
the same thing.
Yeah.
They're typically low light, dusty in some cases. I don't think there's really much of a difference between them.
I find a basement scarier. Because a basement is somewhat thinking you're already underground. You're already somewhat
dead.
buried.
You're already halfway dead.
Yeah, and being in a basement, it seems kind of like the only way out is through the way you came in, like the one set of stairs or door. But an attic kind of makes me feel you can go downward out a window, up through the roof. Like there seems to be more ways to exit of an attic than a basement.
More escape routes present.
Yeah.
I'll tell you which one's scary in the summer. An attic, because the heat rises up.
Well, I mean, more uncomfortable.
Things die in attics.
You ever been in a sauna with a ghost?
Let me tell you,
did you think that the attic was scarier in Home Alone or the basement?
Well, okay. The basement on that. I mean, the furnace.
Furnace. Alright. I want to take that soundbite now and edit that into the Home Alone. Just go,
Home Alone, it's a very good attic.
Yeah. I like, well, yeah, I think the basement is scarier objectively than the attic, but I also agree with Crimson that I think they're both similar.
I think they
or
both
can be.
I mean, yeah.
I think it's just how they portray it. I don't think it's, for me.
That could be.
But man, if that's how scary the attic is, imagine the basement of this place, huh?
Well, we're down there for the boiler anyway.
We see the boiler.
Yeah, not that scary.
Actually, yeah, in this, I would say the attic is more scary than the...
Yeah, like
for this film.
Well, for this scene.
Yeah, and I think it makes it worse for this one is because the window is too far up that you feel you would get really hurt using that as an escape route.
Yeah.
I don't know if that might not be possible to squeeze out of. Seems like a small window.
Well, he's a big guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say he
John,
probably couldn't, but I think Claire could if she got stuck up there.
Yeah.
Dust doesn't get open.
Speaking of the dust, would there be this much dust in 60 years?
Yeah.
No, 70 years. 70 years.
Dust, yes. Cobwebs, I don't know. I don't think so.
I just don't know if it would look like that in 70 years or not.
I think it was an excessive amount of cobwebs. But the layering of dust, I think, was fine.
I mean, let's see. After like both my grandparents died, we kind of had their house like vacant for a while, and like probably like maybe a year after like when we went back up there, it was getting pretty dusty. Not like this, it wasn't like this level of dusty, but like it was, surprisingly how much had just nobody living in there for even just a year. So I think 60 years it seems somewhat possible. I don't really know. Not a dust expert, unfortunately.
Right, are you a dust expert?
No. I deal with polished historical things, not...
Let's use our hotline and call resident dust expert.
Do we have a dust expert?
1-800
yes.
Dust Now.
I thought it was
Paul
I thought it was 1-800 Dusk Boys, but
Dust Boys. There's a guy who works at a college or whatever who's like a dust expert or something.
There has to be a dust expert somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we can do some research between now and the recap.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a disparity between this and The Mummy 2 on the amount of dust in a room. And in The Mummy 2, that was thousands of years. This was only 60 to 70 years. So I was going to say it's not believable. That's a just comparison.
Honestly, my mouth was a gape for a minute. I couldn't believe you did that.
That was, man.
Half of my brain had to disconnect and slap the other half like he's making a joke.
How long did it take you you been working on that one since we started this whole little conversation, or did that just come naturally?
It just came right there.
Oh my God.
I was thinking the music box. I'm like, oh yeah, the Scorpion King had a chest with the bracelet in it. That was covered in dust.
So did the wife do like that, like the repair or whatever on that chest, or is that like what we're supposed to be assuming?
Wife repair chest?
Because he has the chest of the balls in, and she was like, "Oh, did you like refurbish this or?" Yeah, and he's like, "No," and I was like, I felt like it was going to be a little bit more important than it ended up being, and it was kind of just like
The desk that had the bouncy ball in it? Or?
It's not a desk, but it's like a chest or whatever that has the guy brings with him, and it's in the apartment too when he leaves New York. And he's like, we're bringing this with, and he has the bouncy ball in it, and he puts it in there, and she asks him about it, like, oh, did you like refurbish this, or and he's like, no, I didn't.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yes, I was like, I thought it was going to be a bit more important than it ended up being, but I guess it was literally just something to hold the ball so that,
Legitimately, it
weird.
also might be one of the few furniture pieces he's holding on to. Like, that's one of the things that he's kept from the old house. Like, he brought it with him. Like, that wasn't here at the house at the start. That was in his furniture piece when he was in the empty room when the ball flashback happened.
I don't know. I was just curious if anybody else had any.
I mean, my guess is that it's his wife's who refurbished. If his wife would have refurbished it.
I'll just jump to the music box now.
Okay.
Jump to the music box, you music head.
The music box, I guess, transition, because we look at it and then it's playing, but it's actually being played in the piano room, music room, and not upstairs. Thought that was pretty decent. I liked the idea that he's been writing a song that already existed in the house.
You know what that told me?
That would be so freaky.
That told me that John was changing.
Changing.
That's what I wrote in my notes. That, oh no, he's changing.
He's changing. He's going to turn into a ghost and knock.
I didn't know if that was what the meaning
was. Was that
of
the changing you? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what it would mean.
You didn't know what the changeling
I didn't know what the changeling was. I thought it was going to be a creature.
It was just the changeling.
That sounds turned into a monster movie.
That sounds like Disappointment Springs.
It is a weird term. It doesn't sound real.
Ryder, you just wait till the summary.
I too was expecting a scroll. So there you go.
And you are correct. The changeling is kind of like a fairy in folklore in Europe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To go over the music box, though, I did think that the music box would wind up being this film's version of the ghost music. Like, it's a theme that would play or haunt John. For examples like in 1408, We've Only Just Begun, or in The Autopsy of Jane Doe, Let the Sunshine In.
Let the sunshine.
How did you remember that?
I wrote it down. I looked it up.
Oh, okay. The way you remember that Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yeah, I had to look them up because I'm like, this could be like those.
This could be.
I also like the music box transition. I kind of like that.
I'm glad you do.
Okay.
All right. No, it was just from what we were sorry. That was not what you said was funny. It was just that it came after what happened before.
Sorry, I should have taken credit that I didn't remember it.
Yeah, you should have. Poopy.
Yeah, so I like the music box transition. I like that Norman calls it a coincidence, and he just doesn't buy that it's a coincidence. He's very rational. Like, what are the chances?
What song is it, anyways?
It was made for this.
Okay.
Not an actual old song.
But
Even
I
cooler
actually think it's a fairly rational conclusion to come to that the house is trying to communicate with him. Because he's never played the melody before, as he describes it.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't understand what it's communicating, but he at least comes to the correct conclusion through the most likely scenario, right?
Yeah. And I also like Claire's take on it as well. I'm trying to rationalize it. Like, could have been a popular song, and you've heard of it before. And I think there's a level to that where
they're
kind of rational.
Yeah,
they both make sense.
Yeah, they both make sense. But I like that they're talking about it. They're theorizing.
Yeah.
This is from the first act, so I don't like bringing this up, but I do like. There's a little aside that happens with Tuttle and John. I think it's when John's like practicing or running through a piece. And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry for disturbing your writing." And he was like, "No, it's okay. This piece has already been written." I found that funny.
That is appropriate, huh?
Yeah, I was like, oh,
Oh, it's
doesn't
double layered
understand
now,
it.
isn't it?
It's double layered. I don't think if there's anything else in the act.
We'll
I
find
think
out that the. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, we kind of assume it's a kid, but Claire's dialogue here is, proof that it's a kid, because she's the
Yeah.
one that comments on it.
This
So
is a child's
small.
room. Small, scary little chair.
It's a child.
1909. The old. And they head to the Historical Society to find out more, because was it before that? She said she'd already looked up to 1920, I think.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
she
like,
backfilled.
She already looked up to
1920.
1920, couldn't find anything. They went up there, found 1909. They head back. Then they asked the lady Sprinks thought was the mom, because I didn't write her name down. I don't remember.
It was like mini something, or
Yeah, it was something. Asking her, and she just knew off the top of her head. Oh, Bernard, and he had a son and daughter.
It's weird that she
Yeah.
gave him that information because of what happened later on.
Yeah.
But I guess
would have
maybe
probed more once she said everything. Like, oh, you seem to know this right off the top of your head. Tell me more.
Do you think she
Give
used
us
that
dirt,
story
give us
to kind of give it to John to get off of thinking that it could be related to Carmichael's, or to
I
try to
definitely
dirty
think
it up?
that was.
I think that was the
I think
intention.
that was the
She was
objective.
giving him a little tidbit in the hopes that it would save him from going for the whole fish.
Because it's not directly connected to Carmichael. It's a little offshoot, and there was a passing as well. So there's definitely enough to where it could have thrown him off if he can get more proof through the seance.
Seance.
I think that's all I got.
Left on Act 2.
Have you guys ever experienced using one of those like real machine things?
I have actually.
The newspapers.
Yeah.
No. I
have
computers.
It's a very fun experience. I quite enjoyed it.
Great.
I've used one.
I wonder if those things are probably like all that stuff is probably digitalized now, right?
I
to
would
save
imagine.
space, I imagine they are all digitalized.
Probably,
yes.
but the machines are probably still archived.
Well, yeah, the machines. I'm sure that, but I was just meaning like the information on them at this point would probably be like digitized as well as having like the physical.
More than likely.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's a very cool experience. I recommend it for anybody that.
It's a very dated practice, but if you can find one and use it, I definitely recommend it. It's a very you feel very smart while you're using it. Not saying you are smart when you use it, but you definitely feel like you're a historian. You're doing like real research almost. I'm describing it badly, but it just has a sense of feeling that it gives you.
Yeah, I used. They had one. When I went to like Philadelphia. They had. I think there's a library there that had one. It was really cool.
I used one when I was visiting Canada. They had a public library that was open, and they had archived newspapers going back to the early 1900s, and I just started hopping around because I thought it would be fun.
All right. Well, I guess we'll jump to Act 3, which is the newspaper stuff. When John is having lunch with Claire.
The famous act of John having lunch.
Yes, the famous act leading up to that. Starting with writer.
All right. Sorry, I'm doing screenshots. Give me a second to find you.
Starting with Sinister.
This was the in between two acts that I really began to like this movie a lot. I sound really pretentious when I say that.
It
did. No, I like the whole thing with the bouncy ball was cool. I don't understand how it was possible, but it's a ghost, so I guess it can do whatever it wants.
Car and
yeah. Rules don't really apply anymore once you're dead. Just roll with it. I think I'll say this, the only thing kind of in this movie where I was like, I kind of should roll my eyes was this whole psychic part, which
nothing. Like a psychiatric ward.
Yeah, nothing against people that are into this stuff or believe it, but I was just like, okay, this is definitely like the Exorcist, where like yeah, we're gonna have an exorcism, or there's psychics that are really good and exist in this world or whatever. And I was just like, okay, you gotta have it. It's gotta fit. You gotta have some way of connecting with the ghost. Or if the ghost exists, this makes sense. So I can't, But I was
one thing I do like about at least the seance scene was the Russell was his expression was more like of skepticism the entire time. Like he wasn't sure, didn't know what to believe it or not the whole time, which I think really helps.
Yeah, it works. I don't.
99% total bogus.
99% total bogus. But that 1%, they're amazing. I've seen a lot of seance stuff, and I've seen a lot of and I used to be into that stuff as a young man. So I did a lot of research into that stuff. But in this scene, and I know the whole writing thing. I've seen that and everything. What's with the cone? I don't think I ever have seen or heard of them using like a big metal cone. I don't.
Isn't it like a tuning device to like tune into the spirit world?
I would assume that's what it is, but to be honest, I don't know.
Yeah, I was just like, this is too it's too big. So that obviously this has to be something that you understand what it is at the time, right? Like it would make sense to you. But I'm like, what? And I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, best guess is the tuning thing, but I don't actually know definitive.
Okay.
What I am curious about is why did John and the medium swap seats?
Because that was where the connection is.
That's why she was just more.
I don't know.
I feel like they called break and then came back.
Yeah,
John, you must sit here.
I don't think it was an error. It was just odd.
No, because they mention it. They outright say, "Okay, John, you should sit here" or something instead.
Well, that's what they say when they start.
But they do it again when they do it again too. After they have a break or whatever.
I don't remember that part. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're like, "Okay, John, now you sit here."
The POV of Sprinks coined the 6 foot tall
He's
Joseph.
So tall.
It's not
really.
it's
just kind of just that one part you screenshot, which makes it feel disingenuous. Because when he's up to the table, he's up to their shoulders, a child height. But walking down the stairs and everything, that's all child height.
Then he floats. He can
float. Which is cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he couldn't use his legs when he died, so I would imagine he isn't crawling on the floor as a ghost.
Well, no, because that would be 1.5 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Presumably you could just fucking float around.
I like how annoyed you are with the 6 foot
The fact
tall.
that he can float around at this height is fine for any other height that is shown.
No, I know, but I like how frustrated Crimson is with the 6 foot tall.
Fine, maybe he's 5'11", but he's tall.
Right.
I'm sorry. That's good.
There was a different shot. I think this was in Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was in Act 2. When John went upstairs to go to the closet to tear it down, we see him walking down the hallway at the camera angle of a child. The camera didn't move or anything, but it was just set at that type of height. I didn't mention it at the time, but since we're talking about heights,
that's also why a lot of shots of John, either like standing around or from, the angle of a child looking up. There's like 3 or 4 shots of John in places where it's a low angle going up to him.
Definitely a few. Yeah.
Certainly could be.
Certainly. This, if we're talking about strange editing things again, the cut from the end of the seance is very jarring. They just disappear. Yeah, they just disappear. There's nobody. It's just John by himself. Is very. Is it? I don't know if it's bad, but it's a weird choice.
And then you get extremely loud film grain.
Don't remember film grain standing out on this part.
I think it would have been good if it was dead silent to give the more intense cut of the glass shatter, Which they could do. They could just take the audio out. If they want silence, take the audio out. But if they want, the sound of walking around, I guess they couldn't do room tone at that point of recording, or not recording, filming in the 80s. Or at least maybe just for the budget of this film. I don't know. But the film grain is so loud.
I
didn't have a problem with it.
It's been a long time since I've heard somebody say that the film grain is loud, so I'm enjoying this a little bit.
There's like 3 scenes in this film where the film grain is so
No,
loud.
When you're saying film grain is loud, are you talking like visual?
Like it's really
grain
visually
or
apparent, yeah.
No, not visual. Noise.
the
Oh.
static. He's
Film
talking
grain.
static.
Yeah.
I
Film grain.
Film
Static
grain
noise.
is when the screen is fuzzy. That's
Okay, that explains a lot.
that's why I was
He's
so confused.
No.
he's talking about the static.
No, when I looked up the definition for this film of what it is classified as film grain. That is what that noise has been cataloged as for this.
Though.
Yeah.
It's not
I
film
know.
grain.
I know. Actual film grain is the pixel
Yeah,
like seeing static
tape-
you can visually see.
it's tape static. Yeah.
Sorry, I should have said it earlier in the facts that the film grain is what they are saying that the white noise is in the film.
I was so confused because you kept saying loud, and when I think of like loud with a visual thing, I think of like,
Vibrant.
I'm like, it's like really apparent, it's there. And then okay, so for like 2 hours now, I have no idea what you were talking about.
No.
All right,
The silence of white noise. I'll just say white.
yeah, yeah.
The white noise is so loud in this film.
It's just kind of typical of the older films, but
Yeah.
sure. The scene in particular. Yeah, are you pointing out when the glass breaks or when he's listening to the?
As
Tape.
soon as the glass breaks and then he's walking around, very loud. When he's walking around in his apartment before, I don't know her name, comes in and drops the ball, very
His
loud.
maid or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, they want to get his footsteps in, like to emphasize that he's alone in the house, which is why the film grain is probably there. It feels like they bumped the
Yeah.
audio, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
they could have, but they didn't. They could have also just room toned it and taken it out.
It's
And
the 80s.
I could somewhat yeah, but then I can compare it to Shining, which came out the same year, also a horror movie.
It's also a different director and a
Doesn't
different
have-
idea,
I know.
though.
I know the different. So it could have been purposely left in for that fact, but man, I think it would have played off far better if it was silent, especially after the glass shatter.
Well, no, if it was silent, it would just show how everything else is just staticky. Then you would complain saying it's the only part that's silent.
I would.
The,
Well, no. Well,
Yeah,
if that was
yeah,
the only
you would.
scene- I would if it was the only scene used. If they replace all the grain I've heard, I think there's like 3 or 4 instances, and they replaced all of those with silence. I think that would have been better than with the grain they have.
the other instances we pointed out, it was to raise the audio of some other sound effect.
Well, then what were they raising? They could have been raising the sound effect of him walking around to the room after the seance.
That's
And
what
it's
I
not
said.
bad.
It's present for a reason. Oh, sorry. I thought what you said, Ryder, was Crimson's talking about when he's in the apartment.
It's just a general. It's also. It's of an era, so obviously, if they have to messing with audios, it's gonna have that tone of
They chose to keep in sound effects
yes.
of walking around and room and wind or whatever is around. They chose to keep that in versus taking it out for dead silence. And that was
Yeah.
their choice to make. I think
Yeah.
it would have been scarier without it. They decided not to.
Yeah, but the same argument could be said that I don't hear any footsteps. I don't hear any. But that's what Foley is supposed to like. Because your brain is used to hearing stuff, so it'd be really off-putting if
And
he's walking around in a big house and
I
there's no
would say-
sound.
Yeah, I would say I don't believe they had a Foley artist for this film. Otherwise, they could have done that. in
There's
post.
no way. There's no way they didn't have a Foley artist. Every movie has a Foley artist.
Then why didn't they do that? That would have been way better.
It's
That would
made
have
in
been
the
amazingly better.
it's made in the 1970s.
No,
They don't.
well, 1978, 79, as Crimson said in facts, but
I'm just
they
saying
could have
it's
totally done that.
it's a choice.
It
It's
is a choice.
and
And I'm not saying it's the worst choice to make. I do believe, Crimson, as you point, I think the worst choice to make is if they did 3 of those loud ones and then did 1 that was silent for only 1 use of silence in the movie, showing that they could do it and they only used it for 1 time. To me, that would have been the worst choice to go with, and they didn't.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come back to this film grain thing at a later date after I think we've all had time to sit and watch what he's mentioning here.
All right. I'll go with the bouncy ball. So the sidekick guy, I don't remember the guy at the research facility that recommended the medium.
The doctor.
He brought up teleporting objects. Do you think it's literal teleportation or just the ghost ran with the ball to the house?
I mean, he got
Or
there
flew or
before
whatever.
him, right?
Yeah, he got.
And John
Got
was
there
in a
before him.
car.
Uh,
That ball would have had to travel faster than John driving to the same destination.
Well, I mean,
well, presumably, if he's moving at the speed of that glass that flew across the room, I wouldn't be too surprised. But it's, I would guess teleportation because I don't know.
That's
I'm
also
gonna
my
go with
guess because the ball was wet.
Then again,
What?
he is fast enough. Yeah, no, because if he was moving with it fast enough, the ball would have dried off. Since the ball was still wet.
Oh, I also don't think. I think there's an off chance that Joseph would have hit stuff with the ball.
Not if he flew in the air.
Oh,
I
that's
agree.
right.
I think it's teleport.
No, Crimson, you're right. There is a chance he could have held it over his 6-foot tall head and gone all the way. Yeah, that could have worked. But no, I'm leaning with teleportation.
Yeah, a teleportation would make.
Yeah, the ball was wet,
sense.
which was a cool detail. I liked that.
That is a detail I missed.
Bounced the second time.
But it's cool.
Could have just been Joseph's clammy hands.
His bathwater hand.
He's certainly a water boy.
Bathwater hand.
I really do like the shot of the psychic like looking up the staircase through the open door and then just quietly leaving and closing the door.
Yeah, I'm not touching this. I'm going back downstairs. Yeah, I mean, she knew what she was doing. She was the 1%.
She was
The 1% available in Seattle.
Yeah. The actress, I think, did well when doing the scribbling.
Yeah,
I don't know if she ever blinked during that. I don't think she did.
Now,
such a stiff face while doing something so wacky.
Now, do you prefer that to Ash's sister in Evil Dead doing the drawing?
The Doodle Bob drawing?
Yeah.
I feel like one's a possession, one isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say I like this one, I guess, a little bit more.
It's acted a little bit better.
I think so. Because in Evil Dead, she didn't even tell anybody about that. It just happened. And then, time for dinner.
Yeah. Well, who would you tell? I got possessed and scribbled all this crazy stuff out.
I ruined my beautiful clock drawing.
My favorite clock.
But back to the Changeling. Who else got stuff?
This seance made me a little bit uncomfortable. But that's because it reminded me of personal experiences, which I suppose is a good thing, right? On behalf of the film,
makes it more eerie for you.
Yeah.
I
do good details. I like her husband or friend who's there with her. Just resetting her arm like a typewriter.
Joseph. Yeah. No.
No.
What were you saying about him?
Oh, I just like that he resets her arm like a typewriter.
Oh, okay.
Oh, when the pencil gave out?
Yeah. Well, when she was running out of space on the paper when she was scribbling, like he just pushed her arm back over and took the paper away. It kind of implies a more empathic experience, which I think is which is a neat detail. I quite like that.
That's pretty cool. Little thing I'm a little confused by, maybe. So they have the whole thing where he's listening back to like the tape or whatever because he hears the voice of Joseph and he writes all the stuff down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he just he calls Claire and then collapses.
Oh yeah,
and he's in the chair.
The idea is he seanced himself.
Oh, okay.
That's because he was writing those words down.
Uh-huh.
Because we kind of cut back to him super sweaty and stuff like that. So the idea is he tried to let Joseph speak through him as well. Which is why
that was something I was 50-50 on. I went back and watched it a couple times. Yeah, even though it was the most disturbing scene in the movie. Because Joseph was talking over the flashback, premonition, whatever, the visual was. And this was through the recording. And he said, "Father, the well, ranch, took the dark, my metal, father, don't." So I should have looked at what was on the paper at the end. Was there anything that wasn't that on the paper?
No, I don't think so.
I
think all those were on it.
Okay. Because I was 50-50 whether or not he was just writing down what he heard or if he actually was the 1%.
It could be that he wrote them down. I guess technically I'm 50-50 on it as well. I assume that's what they wanted me to think, but because it's nothing new, it could be either.
It's interesting. Well, he didn't write it down normally. He wrote it in like corners and
ranch,
like hard font and
ranch, well, my body, my father, metal, and Carmichael. Those are the only things written down.
Okay, so there are a couple.
Carmichael. He didn't mention Carmichael in the recording. That's new information.
Okay. Oh, well, there's one word at the top that's cut off on.
So Carmichael's new, so that might actually lend to him.
No, the word that's cut off is well, isn't it?
No, it is well, and then there's a thing right above it, the end of it, I think. It might just be part of the scribbling. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Well, since we have Carmichael, which is new, that actually might be enough to show
that he seance, which explains the exhaustion.
Yeah.
Because
that's why I went back to look, because I agreed with Sinister. That was a little weird. Because he's been level-headed, so otherwise that would have been like a panic attack, and I don't think that would be his character.
Well, yeah. The only defense if it wasn't a seance would be that he is just so exhausted. Like, personally, just because he was up through the night because he couldn't sleep due to what he learned.
Yeah. But it's weird that Claire comes in and she's like literally shooken. I think that was the other thing that was confusing to me.
Well, she listened to the recording.
Oh, she did? Oh, yeah. No, she came in through the door, and then she went right straight into the thing.
No, she came from the music room.
No, she came from the music room.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. I must have missed that.
And that would work because she was there, so she doesn't think it's bullshit.
No.
Yeah. The shadow she cast in there, do you think that was just dramatic because of the lighting, or do you think they were trying to play it off like a ghost shadow and then she was revealed?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was just for cinematic fun.
You know, fun cinematics. We all joke here on the podcast, kids, but don't do a seance on your own.
Yeah, please don't. Not good. Not healthy.
Wouldn't recommend it. No.
Got something else, Springs?
I'm looking through my notes. It ends at the lunch.
I really love the shot of him leaning back in his chair. And then we follow, like, pan across Claire's face, and we see him lean forward on the other side of Claire.
Is just Carmichael, or I guess the Senator Carmichael, make the phone call he makes in his office? Is that in this act or the next one?
That's in this.
That's in this? Okay. Yeah. Then I can touch on what a stupid design for his office building.
The exterior or the interior?
The exterior. That
with
white
the weird
column base that goes up into an office building?
It's interesting. I'm good with that.
The thing is, I'm used to
not
that.
Efficient.
I think I'm used to that in tall buildings, so I can't really complain about it.
Well, and I don't know if this is a thing in Canada. I know it used to be a thing in France. I don't know if it still is. But when renting spaces, they charged you by how much space you used on the ground. So they would have a small base and then build outwards towards the sides and then up to get more space. So I don't know if that's a thing in Canada.
If that is a thing, it works. It just looked very weird to me. Then again, I'm an American, so maybe that's why. But
you are? That's a potential solution. I don't know.
Sinister, our audience members from Dubai might just learn that today. So I'm just putting that out there.
The funny thing is, we do have an audience member in Dubai, according to the audio logs.
There we go. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
You're a true champ.
I'll touch on, I think it was, this is the act where Claire goes to John, sees that he wrote down the hospital, and then she goes to the stairs and looks up and gets petrified.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's right after the
Okay.
shot I was describing, where she was asking
How-
John to shut up. Like,
How did they not hear the wheelchair come down the first flight of stairs from the
Teleported.
attic?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
exactly
it teleported.
pretty much. I wrote the exact same thing as you, Springs. Either
Now that we've established a teleportation rule, that can be viable.
yeah, like I wrote the same thing down as you, Springs. So like, I don't know how they didn't hear it, but I guess teleportation because ball. Like that's literally legitimately what I wrote in my notes, word for word.
Was ball?
Okay. Teleport. Okay.
It's not favorable. I
It's
agree.
not favorable.
But
I agree.
since
But
we
If
now
they
have
did
that as
show
a
the ball
rule,
once, then they can. Okay. Then Joseph can do it.
Joseph can do anything with his coat of many colors.
that's also a very iconic scene. Well, the ball and the wheelchair. Yeah, I liked it.
good on the actress though, because she did Petrified.
He was really
well.
good with panic
Yeah.
in this whole thing.
She was. They should have hired her to do more Panic.
Well, for the
I
remake.
think I think she did another horror film. I think it was
It
called
looks
The
familiar.
Hearse.
I never saw that.
Yeah, me neither. Never
Shocker.
heard of it. Yeah.
Um,
Other stuff in the act.
I picked up piano pieces started playing at or around the house, whereas anything else in the city or town was violins or strings.
Dude,
I
we
didn't-
also got the. This
I
is
don't know
also where
Steve.
the act where we got the shot of him drowning the kid, right?
yes,
Yes.
which is probably the most. Like
Yikes!
yeah, that was
Yeah,
pretty
brutal.
Pretty brutal. Yes.
Do you guys
Um,
do you guys prefer that they never show, I guess, the senator's dad's face?
We get a painting.
Well, you can kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, you can
see
kind
it.
of see who it is. Yeah.
We get
It's not a straight on shot,
It's not a straight on
but
shot.
we do get the portrait.
We get
yeah.
the portrait painting, and I think that's works to its advantage. Because he's the real monster of the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comstock. Oh wait, no. Senator's dad.
There we go.
Yeah, it's very dark, and I think it's probably the best scene of the movie for me, just because I like how it
Sicko.
connects the
You
thumping.
sicko! Oh, you freak!
Just
That's
like
your
the rest of
favorite
us.
scene in this movie?
Yeah, I like that it ties all the mysteries together. Essentially, it makes you feel for the ghost. We get a POV of him going up there, leading to it, which is cool. I think it was a well constructed scene that makes the movie what it is. If this scene was filmed in a poor way, I think the movie would heavily suffer to that. I think this had to be done well, and I think they did.
I agree.
It is.
It did seem. It seemed there was a line they were allowed to cross.
Yeah, there was because I don't know. You don't see kids dying in movies very often. So when it does,
When you do, it's not drawn out like this either.
Yeah.
Well, when you do, it's not
I think
for a visual of death of a child. It wasn't graphic. It wasn't very brutal.
It was right on the edge.
Well, it was brutal, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
There's no blood. There's no guts.
Yeah.
There's no dismemberment. There's no pain. I mean, there's no
Yeah,
torture.
There's some pain, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think objectively, I'd probably agree with you, Crimson. This is probably what I would pick as the pivotal film scene, because if this scene doesn't work, the rest of the film falls apart. It's not my favorite subjectively, but I think objectively, I would probably pick it as my favorite scene as well.
I mean, this is the scene of the movie. Like, this is kind of.
Yeah. I mean, it's uncomfortable, which means it does its job.
Yeah, it caught me off guard when it came on, and I was watching, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're doing this now."
Here. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
They do a good job. It's just quiet. It doesn't glorify it. It doesn't do anything. It's just the water and the banging, which is, I think, a very, very good choice.
Yeah, it's
Going to throw something out that might make it darker, but I want to know if you guys think it would be a good thing or good that they left it out, potentially. Joseph could have grabbed the edges of the tub and pulled himself up.
Oh,
Do you think they should have shown him doing that, and the dad pressed down on his chest, and then he starts banging because he can't lift himself up anymore?
I think.
Okay, remember, this kid is very young. I don't think he could have. One, and remember, he is paralyzed from the waist down.
I think if
Well,
the
waist down,
father,
yeah, but obviously you could use his arms. That's
I
what
think
was
they could have shown him
bringing that up.
attempting.
I think
Yeah.
if the father did any more like him just lifting up the legs it's so
I think it would have been too gratuitous if he
it
did
keeps
that.
it keeps it detached where it doesn't feel it feels like
Is this
it's
a rated
not
R movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Rated R? Okay.
Yeah.
It keeps it in the gray area of him not doing it for a personal reason. It's for the financial reason we find out later on, right? If he actually if he went further than that, I mean, he's still a piece of shit. I mean, but it would make it even more personal, which I think is the point of it. Is supposed to look like it's not really personal, but it's still awful and it's still terrible. And I mean, it still is personal, even if he doesn't press down on him. But I think if he really went for it even more so than they already did, it would have been. I think it would have been just a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think while your suggestion would show it to be a little more brutal, I think it approaches the point of being too grotesque, which I think would have detracted from. I guess it would have detracted from me the tragedy of the scene. Because right now it strikes that balance between horror and tragedy really well, but adding that in would have made it too gratuitous and would have leaned it more in one direction over the other, being the horror aspect.
Okay. Yeah. That was just something across my mind. I agree. I think what they went with was better.
Yeah.
What your thoughts would be on it.
Yeah. I mean, I would have liked to have seen him try a little bit more. But I think it would have not worked in the balanced favor as far as
I think there is a way that you could have shown him trying more and not having to sacrifice just the simplicity of holding the legs up. But it's a very, very near thing. I'm like, it would be a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I think for how they did it, I think they pretty much got it about as close as you can get without crossing a line.
All that they're going with in the film, I think this is the accurate of what to fit and work with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to ponder out of my head what else they could have done where it wasn't as graphic to still get the point across, and I'm trying to think if the dad pushed him in the well, and then it could be that way where he can't swim and he drowns in the well, but it's not it was just a one thing of the dad.
Well, the well is where he dumped the body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he could have. I mean, it was on. They own the land, so
they could have still played it off that way, where I think it would have still worked.
Would we be missing out on the thumping?
He could thump in the well.
Or I think he'd rather try. I think he'd try climbing it than.
Yeah, they could have adapted it to scratchings.
Then it wouldn't be. It would change a lot if it was the well, but
yeah, because then he wouldn't be attached to that.
He
wouldn't be attached to the house. Yeah.
Yeah, the main thing is that he died in the house, so it's attached to the house. But even though it's the same ownership and it's his dad who did it, it could still be connected to the house in that way. I don't think it would have been as strong though with what they went with. So, but I'm just thinking of an alteration of what they could have done.
Yeah. There's a couple things, but I think at the end of the day, this was probably
really
this was. I mean, this is kind of like a cheesy sort of movie, and this scene is in it, and it's pretty brutal. It irks you in a way you're not really expecting.
Yeah, I would not call this scene cheesy. As you said, but this scene takes you out of that a bit.
I mean,
it adds the weight that the movie's been missing.
Yeah, it's and I mean, I've watched a bunch of your Friday the 13th, Halloween movies and everything, and I mean, those are pretty brutal deaths in those too. But there's something about this. It's just so. I mean, we use it a bunch. It's just so brutal. It's like
it's uncomfortable and it's unsettling. And because the thing is there's a as you say, Friday the 13th. There's brutal deaths, right?
Yeah.
But what kind of it kind of becomes a sport eventually. How much blood can you get out there? I mean, Braid Den's an example of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just a matter of just what's the most grotesque, bloody thing you can do, and then this has no blood. But it's still has a very, very different core effect of a way you can die without any blood of yours being spilt.
Mhm.
So, I agree. It's just, it's brutal. Coming back to
Brutal.
that, I got one note. Mr. Russell doesn't look very conspicuous standing on the corner of the street, staring directly at the
I
senator.
was gonna say he looked like he was about to like do an assassination attempt or
That's
something.
That's one of those instances where the camera was a downward up angle to really give him that look taller, I guess, but also from the angle of the kid.
Yeah.
That was one scene that did it.
Looked like something out of Taxi Driver.
Kind of. Yeah.
Or the Joker, because those
Or
two
the
kind of get put together now.
Yeah. They're lumped together now. For better or for worse.
Historical Society woman snitching on him to the senator.
Yep.
Talking some shit.
It backfills her motivations, which is also really, really good. It explains why she's been so, like, not forthcoming with information.
Yes. And just hostile in general. Don't want you around. The house doesn't want you.
Doesn't want anyone.
I don't want you. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
The tower is named after Spencer Carmichael, I guess. I don't. Is that the son's name? Is it Spencer? Or is it Spencer someone else in his family? Lineage? I don't.
I was trying to.
Tower.
Because
Yeah, that's the name of the tower, but
because he's supposed to be Joseph, but why is his name Spencer?
No, he's
I
Joseph.
think that's a different.
His
Spencer
father
was
Spencer?
the wife. Was the wife's side of the family? I think.
Oh yes.
So they combined the names.
Oh, so his
with
last name is Bernard.
subtitles.
Yeah.
With subtitles, there was a part in the film with subtitles that Spencer Carmichael is slashed. So it's Spencer / Carmichael, which tells me that they're both last names.
Yeah, Spencer was the rich mom's side, which is why Richard killed what's his face, Joseph.
Joseph.
The,
I think we were just talking about
Joseph
that.
would lose the money once he dies.
Yeah.
He
And he probably was
going
to die before. Yeah, he was 21.
I think that's all for this act I got.
You're not going to talk about the lunch?
I mean, that's kind of going into the next act.
Okay.
We can go into the next act.
I'm ready.
All right, next act. Act 3. The lunch stuff with Claire to when Officer DeWitt enters the home. Or just
Mr. DeWitt.
Whatever.
I think I quite like the what is it called? I quite like this lunch scene because it's very quick, but they get out so much information. So it's very, very sharp dialogue that I really, really appreciate.
Agreed.
Definitely needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A little breath in between the seance and the ending.
I guess it's true. A little medium rest.
Yeah, because now
that we have
motivations. Yeah, so now that we have like the motivations and the event, now they're on like a investigatory. Now it's turning into a partial investigation.
Yeah. Now it's a mystery. It's a mystery movie now.
And to be fair, this conversation does a lot to help us ease us into that now new subgenre being added.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know where they had to call in a medium?
Why?
Because a large wouldn't fit through the door.
Good one.
Jokes.
No,
solid joke. How do you guys feel about? Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask: is the daughter, or I don't know, the house lady's daughter, is she possessed when she wakes up? When we see her actually like walking through the house?
Oh, she's definitely in a trance, but I don't
because she's looking upward.
Yeah, it's like a hypnotic state of some sort.
Yeah, because then she looks and she screams.
Yeah, the implication is definitely a sort of a hypnotic trance of some sort.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Well, I don't know why she'd want to go in there.
Also, I was a little disappointed. She did not described Joseph as gnome-like, and I was waiting for whatever this gnome-like was, and it was just normal Joseph.
Gnome-like.
That's how he was described.
She's that skinny as well. Which
Yeah.
makes sense.
Well, he was like what? He was like 9 years old. He had all those issues, so he's probably pretty small.
What do you picture with gnome like Joseph? What were you picturing?
Something not
Dinky
as
Dingle.
bad. Something not as bad, but something along the lines of like baby Voldemort.
Ew, that's disgusting.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have liked that because I would have been confused why that would have been in the movie.
I
How
think
did that get down there?
I think if it was more skeletal, because that's where the
Yeah,
bones were.
I don't know.
I think it could have been more scary, rather than just him.
Well, I don't think they were going for scary here. I think they were just going for like eerie. I don't think that scene scared people that weren't children, anyways.
Did it scare your mom?
Wait, yeah.
No.
But
Oh, okay.
oh, it didn't scare her. It just unnerved her.
Well, Crimson said this is supposedly her
Most feared movie. It is her most feared movie. When I watched it with her for the podcast, she covered her eyes during the bathtub scene, and the wheelchair and the bouncy ball. She closed her eyes on all that stuff. So, do you guys think they went with the eerie thing, or what do you think?
I think eerie. Yeah, I think eerie. I just can't I don't know if this is contextually like a horror movie. I feel like it doesn't really have, other than like a few little hallmarks here and there. I feel like it doesn't really have that same feeling. It's
I think we're just too deluded to modern age.
I mean, obviously, probably when this came out, it was a horror. Like, because there was really no way. It's like it's about supernatural stuff, and it's kind of spooky, so it has to be a horror film. But now, I don't think it would still classify as a horror film.
I think horror thriller is what it's described as.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's several genres, obviously, because of the detective aspect that they added in later. But those are the two main ones listed. And yeah, I agree that in the day, I think this would be horror, because back then, horror was more like of the unknown. You don't usually depict the horrors so much. It's more of a build-up.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's kind of just jump scares and loud music and
just
stuff.
Remind me how much of a love Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and Soma. Sorry.
So I think they're just two different times where horror genre was kind of very different to what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, Psycho.
Because now this would just be like a suspense film instead of a horror.
Yeah.
If it came out today.
Yeah, because Psycho is a horror film, or was like a horror film. And I mean, it's probably closer now than it was back then. But I mean, or you'd still call it probably a horror film now. But it's it's not really that scary.
What about Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
That's still a horror film.
It's a horror film. That was 1974.
Yeah, they eat people in that movie.
I haven't seen it.
You ever saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
No.
Okay.
I'm not saying all horror movies were just like this.
Yeah, not all horror movies.
You had your slashers, like
Chainsaw. There was, well, that was, and they were like a subgenre was slasher films.
Yeah, slasher films.
Grindhouse was different. I don't know.
I'd probably count Alien closer to this genre.
Yeah, it's also probably in the forerunner as a haunted house film too, along with Amity and.
I'd probably put Alien in a similar place with this, where it's mostly a build up to a thing, but the suspense.
They don't show the alien very much.
Yeah, it's just gross.
They hold it off.
No, to me, the scariest. Sorry for the spoilers of Alien, but I think the scariest thing of Alien is that damn cat.
The cat is scarier than anything else.
Okay, here's
fair.
Here's a very good example. Halloween. Yeah. That was 1978.
Yeah. That's not that scary.
No, not today. That is not scary.
No, not today. But for a horror movie of the time of late 1970s, I think that's fitting.
Yeah. Are you coming up with these on your own, or did you look up horror movies before the 80s?
I'm going to learn from my experience of what I said last time with the Autopsy of Jane Doe. These were all off the top of my head.
Nice. You got the years.
Cut in there, and I lost my train of thought.
Well, while you gather it, I'll jump to the getting a story from the mother about why she's letting them in and just hearing their story out. Because it'd be
very for 2 minutes.
Yeah, it'd be very weird because if you just did it out of the blue, but they actually tie it to something, which I think is important.
3 days ago on Monday.
Which is this when they did the seance, which I think is
Which
actually
is before today.
which is why I think I like the detail that it's tied to that because it gives more credence as to why she would even bother letting them in and listening to them.
Also, that the seance did affect the remains of Joseph.
Yes.
Joseph working overtime, haunting 2 houses.
Give this guy a raise.
I think, well, I guess it's fine. John did slip a little when he told the cop not really. It's like, what do you mean by not really? It's like,
I don't know.
John, come on. John's being very secretive of hiding stuff.
He could say anything, though, and it would be weird because why did you tear up this woman's floor if you didn't think there was going to be a body down? Like, there's no
That's true.
logical reason.
Did they give a purpose of why they were doing it?
Probably you could say, like, home improvement, maybe. But there's, like...
Presumably, they could have just said that the trail from the Historical Society led them here, and that's why they were digging it up.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
they could be truthful to a point, but...
Yeah. Still weird.
To answer your question, I don't think they actually gave a reason.
No, they were just like...
They don't give a reason.
Do you know who this body is? No, not really.
Yeah, they don't give a reason, and I think that kind of makes it better. Like, it happened off screen, presumably.
Well, yeah, they also question everybody afterwards.
Yeah, so
he said he was going to. So
yeah,
he said he's
that
going
question
to,
would be posed.
At least not for John and Claire.
No, or no, their conversation could have happened afterwards.
Yeah.
Like
You think the cut of them looking over at the house was immediately after that?
Could have been.
When a cop says they're going to question people, I think they're going to question the people.
No, I think so
the ones
too,
that uncovered
but...
it. They would have some legal issues if they just ducked out on that.
Well, yes, but I think there's also legal issues of John breaking and entering.
Well, yeah.
He had permission to go in there.
To break
No,
to
go on.
Just break
later on.
When he goes
back.
later
to take the necklace.
That was weird.
Yeah.
That was a little weird.
Goes through a window.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't in the presence of the cops while ducking the questions would have been.
No, that's not around the cops. And then I think a fine edited reverse shot of the metal coming out of dirt, which is probably an inch thick.
I was a little
Had
disappointed.
to pinch it and pull it through, but
I was a little disappointed that they like it wasn't where it was when he went to grab it. It was in a different kind of area.
I guess that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
was a different spot. I just also on that. Lucky the cops didn't find that because that didn't seem to be very deep.
Yep. Well, we don't know how many more hours he spent down there, but presumably,
Oh, it looks like, I don't know.
Well,
it was weird.
we don't.
It would have been with the body.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying it could.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't know how far it was pulled up
No, yeah.
by Joseph.
Well, also, if he could have done that, why didn't he just like also have the body come up after the floor?
Oh, why didn't Joseph pull his own bones out of the ground?
Yeah, if he could pull a freaking medallion out.
I mean, they found the body.
Yeah,
That would have been a good scare of like an
You're
animated ghostly skeleton coming out of the ground.
Ray Harryhausen-esque thing just coming. That'd
That'd have been a little spooky.
Oh,
I will say. Oh, you know what? No, Crimson, go.
All right. I was going to ask, do you think that John's explanation or excuse, I guess, to not involving the cops was a decent one or not?
It didn't really make sense.
I'm 50-50 on it. I think I need him to be a little more paranoid about the police first.
I'm kind of agreeing with the writer.
Because
this was before we get DeWitt, who seems sketchy.
Yeah. So like he needs if the DeWitt scene had taken place before his reasoning, that would make it more. His reasoning would make more sense to me. But because we've seen him be such a rational character, I would have preferred something about the cops tipping him off to be a little more paranoid first.
Or knowing that Carmichael has ties to the police of any kind or anything.
Yeah, I think that...
The only thing I got is he knows Carmichael's powerful, but that's very flimsy.
Yeah, I needed more for that, unfortunately. That was a small nick for me.
Yeah,
Well, I
because
was
just
gonna
gets like
Sinister go.
I said, he just looks really paranoid for like no reason. I mean, you can infer a reason, but it
We
it's
infer
just
it
kind of
is
out
the
of
problem.
yeah.
What I was gonna say is that what was it? Immediately after when he's like washing his hands and face, talking to Claire about the metal. Hard cut to the airport.
Oh yeah. This is the dumbest decision he makes in the film.
Going
Worked out for
alone,
him.
surrounded by goons
Yep.
at an airport.
Yep. This is the dumbest decision he makes in the film, and this is the only part of the film that I felt was really out of character for him being as rational he has been. Was this? Because I think he
I
would
got
have
your medal. I found it with the body.
I
He
think
just rushes on to
Yeah, I think he would have tried a few other ways to get into contact with Carmichael first.
Yeah.
yeah.
I can
Through his
see,
assistant or something.
I could see this as the end result of him trying and failing to get into contact with him. But I need a build up to this.
Agreed.
Seconded. How do you? I guess enjoyment wise, how do you guys feel about the investigation as a whole? I quite enjoyed having to scrub through the records of Wells and something they didn't have to depict, but I like that they did. I thought that was kind of a cool moment.
In 1918, it's still there.
It's a nice detail to add.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
I quite like the reason I like the investigation aspect is it they go about it in a very very they go about it in a logical manner, and because he's a rational character, I can believe that he would be willing to do the groundwork for this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of the blue either. So I think the investigation parts of this film have their place.
I'm not an expert on Wells, so
You're not?
I'm not.
Well,
Would a
well,
well
well.
be that close to that source of water or not? Because I know wells are usually like freshwater sources, and that water wouldn't be fresh water, presumably. But I still don't know if they would still put a well right next to that.
I don't know. It's a interesting point.
I think so.
I think you can get away with it. I'm not a well person either. I have to double check, but I think it works.
Also, the wells made before 1900.
Yeah, wells are built.
The river or whatever that is, it's still.
Yeah, wells
there.
are built for groundwater more so than they are for river water. So you can get away with it, I think, being this close to a river. I think it's possible. I just need to double check.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure on that one.
What I do have in my notes here is I think the part where John goes back and yells at Joseph. I have Joseph, stop being spooky and just help out. Stop being
He's not getting his way.
Spooky little kid just being like wailing and moaning. I'm like, come on.
It's funny.
His dad drowned him.
It's funny in my notes. I've written and House throws a tantrum.
Yeah.
Who knew it was such a monster house?
Yeah.
Oh right, no, sorry.
Yeah.
My exact words. La Quisita throws a bit of a tantrum as a reference to.
There you go.
You know, Encanto.
Oh, Encanto. Okay.
Yeah, La Casita. It's alive.
Yeah.
I feel like the whole DeWitt thing was kind of, I don't know. It was weird.
The first thing that threw me off about DeWitt's arrival was the car close up, and they hung on that shot just a little bit too long for my liking.
I mean, I got it because
well, the car almost hit the cameraman.
Yeah.
I mean, it did make sense because technically they did have probable cause because he did just show up at the airport and try to accost the guy, you know, force his way onto the thing. But I don't know, it was just a weird interaction.
I couldn't tell.
I think that was the intention, though.
Oh yeah, it's a very weird interaction. I couldn't tell if Dwight was trying to, like, say they're going to blackmail, you know. I mean, it's played off and it could be interpreted, I think. But I think Dwight was for me, I think was there to threaten him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was
and intimidate him.
The goal.
But to be fair, for Russell being such a rational person, he doesn't really defend himself well.
No, he doesn't really, like, yeah, like, doesn't really have a reason why he would be doing anything that would be logical or anything like that. He just kind of, it's all like painted on his face how guilty he is from the questioning, or like obviously something's going on and he's not saying it, and it's really obvious.
I like there's a bit of a build up. Like he asks about the seance and stuff first.
Yeah.
And where his practices with his students, and then he asks about the blackmail, because blackmail is a good assumption, presumably.
Yeah. I mean,
At this
it
rate.
fits. Yeah.
Considering what he was yelling at the airport.
Have you ever died?
The body.
My note is literally, I'm going to read you my note for quote. Russell, your airport stunt was about the stupidest shit you could have ever pulled.
Yep. Pretty much. Could have just gone to his office or something.
Could have just like, yeah.
There's a few things.
But he wanted to get it done immediately.
Yeah.
He was flying away somewhere. But also, I guess he just knew that he was at the airport at that time.
Well, he's a big senator guy, right? So.
Well, I mean, presumably he was informed by the senators, because the senator called him. The senator could have told a guard as well. So presumably the information got to the captain regardless. Like that's not a huge issue.
I mean, John finding
No.
the senator at the airport.
Oh, that's just lucky. I have no idea how he did that.
Brings you a little quiet. You got something?
I was looking something up. Sorry. To touch on later.
And
I think DeWitt was just vastly used.
Vast means large.
No, fastly.
yeah.
Oh, fast. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought he was fastly used.
They definitely fast track him. I think
Two
if he
scenes.
had a presence earlier in the film, it would have been a little bit better.
I agree, and would have helped with something, but I don't want to touch on it until my summary. But there is a reason I think they did it, that he's only in this part of the film.
Writer, did you recognize DeWitt?
Oh yeah, I thought he was familiar. I don't know where I know him from though.
The original Battlestar.
Oh
Baltar.
my goodness! Yes, you're right. He is Baltar. Like familiar face.
Yeah. You're about to say something?
Again, this scene brings up, or this act, area brings up another problem with the powers of the of Joseph.
Yosef.
Yeah, Yosef with his the death of DeWitt.
Kind of getting into the next act stuff with that.
Oh, was that the next? Oh, that's right. Never mind. I forgot DeWitt.
We'll bookmark it.
I'll bookmark it. Yeah, I think him just like yelling at the senator and everything, and that's it. It's just he was being so careful, and then he's not careful. It's very strange.
Yeah, I think
like with the cops, he's like, I don't know.
I do like the calm aspect that he has. Like he's like, I'll be here when you guys return with the warrant. Like he's just exercising his rights. I do like that Russell's not, complete nitwit. He eventually relaxes back into his rational self. It's good.
Yeah. It's just the
very unlucky that Claire storms in about to blow stuff up though. Like, say shit.
She's like, you fucking asshole.
I've been sacked.
Yeah,
Your lease is done.
To be fair, I'm surprised she's not even more angry with him, but she takes it fairly well.
But is she mad at
she's
him?
partially responsible, right?
Yeah, is she mad at him, or is she mad at like?
She's more mad at her situation and him, I think.
Yeah.
Because the scene ends with her still like, I'm gonna see what I can find out when I question the board of directors. Like she's still on the job with him. Like she's just there to vent.
She's on the job.
The shot with angry Joseph closing all the doors. I really liked how that looked. They timed it very well with the camera looking around at everything, because it was very quick, and it all seemed very well timed out.
Indeed, yeah, it was I think the editing in this is pretty good overall. Some of it is, I think, a bit iffy, but I think a lot of it works, even though some of it doesn't.
Yeah, because after that he shouts at him like, "What do you want from me?" All that stuff. Obviously, Joseph's mad at him because he's failing.
He's just pent up.
He's failing him, and
Failing.
Will you see that he slept on the couch? Because that's
see.
when DeWitt knocks and he wakes up, gets there. So, do you think he did that out of fear of Joseph, or that he got locked out of his bedroom by Joseph?
I think he was just tired.
Oh, I think he was exhausted.
Oh,
He spent all night digging again. Yeah, he's meant
fell
to be.
asleep there.
And
I just found it amusing that
eyesight.
Joseph locked him out of his bedroom. Yeah.
That's funny headcanon. I'll accept it.
All the doors slamming.
Yeah.
Doors be slamming, y'all.
I think that's all I have on this act, though.
Yeah, I think that's it for me, too.
I believe so for me as well.
The last thing I have, which I'm a little shocked, Sprinks, you didn't catch this. Well, I'm a little surprised.
Maybe I did.
Well, you probably would have brought it up. The night that the girl gets up to look at Joseph in the water, we get an outdoor shot of the camera going towards the wall where all the ivy vines are. Whatnot, kind of goes through the wall, and then behind her back,
the implication
into
that
the room.
Joseph is haunting.
Yeah, they reused that shot again. When John breaks in, they use that exact same shot of the camera going up to the ivy wall.
Oh, interesting.
That's
good to know.
For the act.
I didn't catch it. That was probably one of those instances where I was looking down, taking notes.
That's a me thing.
Good to know.
Yeah. All right, final act. DeWitt to the end.
Oh shoot! Who's going first?
I would.
I technically had a bookmark.
The sister had a bookmark.
Yeah, sister had a bookmark. So.
Damn, what was it? I forgot.
DeWitt in the car.
No, I know. Just gonna stretch it out as long as I can. Yeah, that's it. So far, I mean, we've kind of just had, Supernatural, so we just kind of have to roll with it. It makes up the rules as it goes along a little bit. But this is one I don't really understand. If he could have done this like the whole time, why didn't he just, kill the senator or something, or like
Joseph didn't know. He died before the whole orphanage stuff.
Oh, okay.
Joseph didn't know what happened, why he got killed. He just got killed. So John revealed why he died and all that stuff.
And Senator's never been in the house, right? He was 18 years before moving back.
He lived there, didn't he?
Because
John said, I live in your house. At the airport, he said that.
Well, that's informal, because technically it's his house, but it's not his house. You know what I mean?
It's a house he gave to the Historical Society.
18 years. Was
so
it Sweden or something? And then they moved back.
He killed the kid, and it was 1909, so he was 9 years old. He adopted another 9-year-old, 6-year-old or whatever, yeah. And then, because technically I guess the kid hadn't been seen in 3 years, so then they went off to whatever in Europe, and were there during the war. So then when they came back, he was, would have been 18 or whatever, and so they wouldn't have known the difference between the two kids.
Yes, but that 18-year-old still lived in that house.
I don't think they say if they just say they hadn't come back to the country until like 1918, but they didn't say if they went back to that house or not.
I'm just curious if Ghost Joseph knows the false senator in his house, like if he ever knew who it was.
I don't think so. Like that's the point of why he's encouraging John.
That's the point of him not knowing and using John's help.
We don't know definitively if the senator went back to that house after the war, I guess. So that's kind of just gray. It would be better for the story if he didn't go back, obviously, for Joseph not figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
Guess we'll go with that. The good faith option.
Okay.
But the other issue with it is that now he has the power to kill people, apparently. And
there was
the power to flip a car.
Well,
flip a fucking car.
We don't know what happened to flip the car.
Well,
we know he has the power of wind.
His power of wind. Maybe he
Oh,
pushed
yeah.
a trash can in front of the car and he veered and flipped his own car. We don't really know what happened to flip the car.
We just
Oh,
know that
We
he
just
flipped the
know
car
it
and
ended up
crashed.
flipping and there were no other
Crimson.
cars in the area.
But don't we?
We
Don't
We know it was
Claire
Joseph.
said.
We know,
Yeah.
we know it was probably Joseph.
There's a weird detail that I missed that now reframes the ending of the movie is that they actually cover his face with a blanket as he's being pulled out of this house after having his seizure / heart attack / brain death due to vision
Mhm.
strain.
There's so many things.
Yeah. So a lot of
The
things
spirit
happen.
walk.
Yeah, spirit walk. That whole his astral projection. I didn't. I just realized the senator died because I thought it was left open, like it was
Yeah.
open ended to whether he was dead or not. But I realized that if he was alive, they wouldn't have covered his body. So
Yeah, that's always the clue for me in a movie. I'm
yeah,
like,
so
oh, did
I
that
don't
guy
know why
die or
my
not?
brain
Yeah.
just shut down when I saw that. So I'm like, oh, he's dead. In which case, revenge tale, I guess.
He killed his replacement because he couldn't kill his father.
And he killed him.
Dad's already dead.
Killed him in the room where he died.
Yeah, technically. With the
Kinda,
little
yeah.
spirit
Well, yeah,
walk.
Yeah.
mentally,
He's like,
yeah.
if you're stealing my name, you got to die where I died.
I read that at the moment as like he was trying to show him the truth because he wasn't accepting it.
Yeah.
But and then I realized, oh no, it's probably just so that for that act of revenge of.
Yeah. I mean, like
I think there's a little bit of both.
It's a little bit of both because I mean, like he wants to show him the truth, and this strain just also happens to get the job done.
Yeah.
I got to a
Fire
weird point in
explosion.
this where I thought potentially the dad's ghost started to come into play.
I
Once
was
it
like,
started shaking and everything started to get more aggressive, I'm like, is this Joseph being pouty, or
that's-
is this the father now?
I thought there was going to be a twist at the end where it
oppressed.
wasn't actually Joseph the whole time; it was actually the father, and
just
he was
very
manipulating.
remorseful.
Yeah, or he was like manipulating all this stuff to come out. Yeah,
But I don't think it was. It's
No.
something that did pass my mind though, as a potential.
Spriggs, did you want to talk
pretty
about the
cool.
mirror?
Well, yeah, I can. The mirror, glad it came out. It came back. It was awesome. I think it would have been more used in an eerie, creepy thing of like a fast cut, as I said earlier. I think would have been more used as a scare. This one was definitely similar to the glass shatter at the seance, the cup, of just quick. But the DeWitt actually being bloodied in a car crash was good.
And
have we-
it's pretty strange that like Yosef like shows Russell almost in a vision while the glass is breaking. Like he almost sees what happened
Yeah.
to
DeWitt,
Dwight.
yeah.
have we reached the point where there was the Roger Ebert thing that you disagreed with, Ryder, or have we passed that now?
It's kind of more in summary.
Okay,
But I
never
mean, like
mind.
I can give it now because it's not too bad. But the thing
I mean, we're in the last act.
Yeah, I disagree with it pretty much 100%. He says the Changeling has some interesting ideas, especially ones involving the present-day identity of man who benefited from a long ago death in the house. And it has two absolutely sensational shots, one looking down into the abandoned well from a teenager's cozy bedroom, and the other looking back up from the well. But it doesn't have the sneaky sense of awful things about to happen. Scott makes the hero so rational, normal, and self-possessed that we never feel he's in real danger. We go through this movie with too much confidence. To which I said he walked away with the wrong interpretation of the film. He didn't pay attention. So that's pretty much what I said in response to that.
Okay.
Like that's not the point of the film. So
Yeah, it's not your typical
No,
scary
I can get what he's
movie.
saying though.
I can get what he's saying, but
Yeah, I get what he's saying.
but
I
it's
think
not-
he saw the wrong movie.
he
though,
saw the
is
wrong
the-
movie. Is what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
because he frames it in a way that it's a flaw that it didn't do that. That's not a flaw. The film made a deliberate choice not to do that. So that's where we are at an impasse.
It's a flaw in his personal opinion because he thinks the movie would be better if it didn't do that. And
yeah.
I don't know.
But
I
that
think
requires
there's
the film to change its identity.
exactly. You could make that argument, but I think this movie, one of its its good points is that it kind of goes in the opposite direction of that, which is the better part.
And Crimson, you had some thoughts to say on that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of brought it up in the beginning with my assessment of John. Is he's not your standard horror movie character. He is not a scaredy cat. He is rational. He doesn't scare easily. Even when he is scared, it's very surface level. He's not panicking or anything. It just, yeah, I agree with your assessment of it. It's just he saw the wrong movie. He saw something else. He was looking for a movie instead of watching the movie.
You know,
Like most critics do.
Critics are known to criticize.
Yeah, I know. To be fair,
yeah.
I mean, it's
we don't do that either.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, like we get stuff wrong too. So it's not. I'm not criticizing obviously Roger Ebert. I'm just saying he just got something wrong. That's fine. It happens, especially in a long career as his. You know?
Critiquing anything is a highly personal thing. You're not gonna get it right for the whole world every single time. So no offense to Roger Ebert. Siskel is better, but
shots fired.
Shots fired. With Brown.
In this act, we have Claire going upstairs looking for John, who is not here, all by herself for reasons.
Pretty obvious because the car is not there. But the only irrational thing that's happened in this movie so far.
That's pretty accurate. I mean, she fulfilled the stereotype for a horror film.
Yeah.
And this is where I saw the most egregious Prue shadow, since we were talking about this earlier. When she was going up the stairs and looked at the bedroom and saw no one there was like 3 times where you could see shadows moving from the crew, and there was one that was like a distinct sharp shadow of like a boom mic or some
I thought they were gonna get away with it. I thought they were
very, very clearly. It was in the bottom left corner. By the doorway of the bedroom. It's very, very clear.
I was like, man, crew shadows. That's fair enough, but boom mic. You can't get away with a boom mic.
It might. It's a boom mic or some sort of equipment. It was a shadow. Equipment. I couldn't tell exactly the equipment, but it's something. It was a sharp shadow.
Didn't you watch X-Files and there was a boom mic in a shot at one point?
There was.
Yeah. Fucking awesome.
So
I love it.
This is completely unintentional, but it's very intentional. Springs, do we want to talk about the hour 28-minute timestamp that we've?
We certainly can. I didn't know if you wanted to go with it or me.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. We have a reaction timestamps in our Discord, and I find it funny because we finished our recording of Arrow not so long ago, and here we are back in the House of the Queens. For the Senator's house. It's the same house.
Same place?
Yep.
Yeah.
Entrance is the same. So, and
is that what Sprink saw? That sounds
what did Sprink see?
That is not what Sprink saw.
Oh.
Like I said, this place is used in
it's
a lot of
the same location.
things.
Yeah.
But Sprink said, the Changeling, this Senator Carmichael has to be the worst mutant in history.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Because that is Charles Xavier's School of the Gifted Youngsters.
Oh wow!
Wait, so a DC and a Marvel location in one?
I was walking in there, I went, "Oh my god, I know exactly where he is."
Yeah, I saw Oliver Queen's household from Arrow just because we just did that recently. But you're right; it is the same location as that too.
It's the X-Men house. Yeah, it's also in Warehouse 13, episode Age Before Beauty and Queen for a Day.
Wait, did you just do a really good impression of Crimson just now?
I sure did. And it's also in Goosebumps, A Night in Terror Tower, Part 1 and Part 2.
All right, that's Sprint.
For a day.
I like to imagine now.
It's also possibly the castle used for Lucas Lee's film shoot in Scott Pilgrim. Exterior.
Yeah, I can sort of see it.
That one was shot in Canada, so there's
all these have been shot in Canada. So I mean, this is a very popular film location to use.
Yes.
I just like to imagine though.
Most certainly X-Men. Yeah. That's what I saw.
Yeah, I saw Arrow, but again, that's because of recent coverage for us.
So we have a Marvel movie, a DC movie,
show.
A DC show, and then possibly the best video game comic book movie of all time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. But I like to imagine in my head now that in school, Xavier's School for Gifted Children, Green Arrow is just walking around and like helping kids because he would.
He's not a mutant, but he doesn't care if you are.
He
No,
doesn't
he's a
care.
he's a gym coach.
He's just gym coach. He just comes. He just lives there. They all like occupy the rooms in the house, and he doesn't care. He just comes in,
Like
helps them with a few things, and then leaves. And does his arrow thing.
He's a human Coach Boomer.
Oliver Queen, Coach Boomer from Sky High.
And if he was jokey like he is in any other representation, it would fit. But the other one does.
Yeah, I'm like, I think Banshee.
Every time.
Well, yeah, the power. Obviously, he doesn't have the power.
I forget every time until I watch Sky High who Coach Boomer is as an actor.
It's so easy. It's Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I know. I forget that Bruce Campbell's in that. I can forget that he's in that movie every single time until I rewatch that film.
I always forget that Tom Kenny's in that movie. But
yeah, Tom Kenny is a little bit more.
He's one cameo role.
Yeah. I keep watching stuff and I hear his voice and then I'm like, oh my god, it's Tom Kenny.
While I was looking for facts for this, I came across something. I couldn't find anything to back it, so I didn't bring it up. I might as well, since you're talking about how popular some filming locations are.
I'm not sure if it's real.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how strong it is. Apparently, The Changeling is one of the earlier examples of British Columbia being used for filming, because now everything films.
Yeah, British Columbia is like this for everything.
The Changeling was apparently one of the first, not the first, but one of the first.
Do you know any other ones that might be considered too, or is that just
no? It's like I said, I couldn't find much on it. It was just a one source I saw.
Anything filmed there between 75 to 80?
He didn't look for that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But. Yeah. So, potential fact out there. If you want to look into it, feel free.
I'm curious, for Sinister's sake, did it mark your check mark on your list that they said the title of the movie in the movie?
Yeah. If we were sitting together in the theater, I would have turned to you and said, "You said the name of the movie?"
Yep. That Changeling was you. Which told me who the Changeling was. And I'm like, that's what this movie's named after?
What a weird way to use that term too. It sounds so
to be fair, it does sound shoehorned into the script.
Yeah.
It's to help people that didn't know what it was. Springs didn't know what it was.
Yeah, no, it's very much there to point out, like, hey, by the way, this is the Changeling. If you guys
this is the reveal.
Putting it down.
This is the reveal. We all need to know this.
I'm sorry, I was disappointed.
You were disappointed.
Well, the reveal is when they figured out it was the senator. This was just them telling you so you understood as a viewer.
What the Changeling?
No, I know.
The reveal happened earlier.
That the senator is the Changeling.
Yeah. Changeling is you.
That's the title of the film they went with.
Well, what they
call
a strong
movie title. Same with Angelina Jolie movie, Changeling. It's the same thing. Her child, she thinks her child got swapped. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know.
This is the darkest version of Parent Trap I've ever seen.
I thought it was okay. I agree. It was a little obviously there for audience sake and not naturally.
It's not so much that they said it. It's just that the word just sounds weird when you say it. Like, you're a changeling.
It's a really, really hard word to work into the script naturally. So
it's not a common phrase.
It's not a common phrase, which is where I think I derive most of my problem with it in the script. Like, I agree, Crimson. It's a small thing because it's the finality of it. Like, really, it's the final pin in it to remove all doubt. But it does feel a little on the shoehorned end.
It's a little campy.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. It's just enough where it passes.
Well, we brought up. I think someone said this movie was cheesy or had cheesy elements or something.
I did
earlier.
Yeah.
Sinister said it was campy.
I said it was cheesy. I did say cheesy, but I meant
you said cheesy. Okay.
I meant campy.
I was going to say the only thing I could see in this that is campy, at least to me, is the when DeWitt dies in the mirror. I think. Yeah. I think that's the campiest thing.
I want to put that on r/Good Faces.
It's a memorable face.
It's good face.
What a
Um,
face to die with.
I do. The old man who plays the senator does a hell of a job in the brief time that we have of him. Like he goes through a range, sitting at this desk talking to Russell.
Yeah,
Did anyone start feel bad for him? Start feeling bad
I
for him?
did. Yeah, I felt
Oh,
bad
yeah.
for him.
I
It
did as
wasn't.
well.
It wasn't his choice. He didn't have a choice in it. He just was.
Yeah, like he doesn't know. Like maybe he's in denial. You know, like he could.
Well, because
it's how
he's
it's
got
played out.
he has the medallion, so he's like, it has to be real.
Yeah, and then
Right.
yeah, you can see like his shock when he sees the medallion laid out on the table, and then I like the instant like I'm gonna pay you off, and then
Yeah.
you know that.
So how much?
And then Russell has to back him down from them. Like he's not here for the money. He's just here to deliver a message, more or less.
Yeah.
Joseph says hello.
I don't know if this is an appropriate time to put in, but I have the definition difference between corny, tacky, cheesy, and campy.
All right, let's hear it.
Here,
Corny is pretending or to have pretensions of originality or significance, but is dull and or tiresome in overall complexion.
A dad
Mhm.
joke.
Tacky is tasteless, showy. In other words, brassy, flashy, garnish, or trashy.
The Coco period.
Velma.
Cheesy,
No.
yeah. Cheesy is flimsy and of poor quality. In short, sleazy or teeny. And then campy is absurdly exaggerated, artificial, or affected in a usually humorous way.
No, I don't think that was intended to be humorous.
Like I mean,
I guess that would fit the cheesy then. The mirror part, based off
Yeah.
the definition you gave.
I feel like campy just sounds.
It
Not
sounds
that-
nicer. Less
Campy
harsh.
sounds nicer than cheesy. Cheesy sounds like it's.
Campy
It's
is what
not
I would
good.
call Evil Dead because it has humor
Well,
scenes.
yeah, Evil Dead is camp. Evil Dead is camp. John Waters films are camp. But I don't know. I think you can. I think it's like gotten to a point now where I think all those terms have sort of like been elevated to a different standard. So you could say something is campy.
Yeah.
Even
I
if
mean,
not,
out of cheesy, corny, and campy, I think I see them all in the same way. Tacky's the only one I see lower. Tacky's
Yeah,
like a
tacky's-
negative thing.
yeah.
yeah, I'd
Like,
probably. Agree
I have to
with
say that shirt you're wearing is so tacky.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, like as I always say, like I'm okay with cheesy and campy like lines. Like I'm okay with cheesy stuff in
Yeah.
like serious things if they're well earned, and then I like campy stuff when it's not in serious stuff. If that makes sense.
I feel like, I know I called it cheesy or whatever, and I think it's aged to cheesy. It wasn't cheesy when
Yeah.
they were doing it. It's become
It's cheesy in
cheesy.
retrospect.
Yes.
In our
Well,
retrospect.
just like Psycho, the shower scene was scary when it came out, but now I don't think that scares anybody.
What you mean, like the knife just coming down and hitting nothing, and then just
Yeah. Banana. Banana. Steer up.
wow. Syrup. And that was our entire synopsis of Psycho. If you want to hear more about that, maybe do a video on that someday.
We can cover it at another date.
But yeah, so how did you guys feel about the slow-mo wind tunnel scene? Now that's campy.
I don't know. I don't think it
him
was.
on the stairs.
I don't think it was laughable or anything.
It was weird.
I do
It was-
think
it's-
Claire
I'd say
going
it felt a
into,
little out of place.
Yeah.
I do think Claire going into the house by herself was cheesy.
That was cheesy.
Okay, I just realized by giving the definition, everything does not have to be described as those four things.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
you
gave us
lifted the
definitions
genie's
you
bottle
violently-
now.
Yeah.
I put it out there.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I mean, like, you brought this up, Crimson, right? Like, it's very unfortunate that she chose to go in by herself, knowing the house is haunted.
Yeah.
Because as soon as the door opens and Russell isn't answering you, it'd be a safe assumption that he's not there. At
To be
worst,
fair for her, she was hearing a voice. So.
Yeah,
at
the mimic.
At
that was the
worst-
real changeling.
Yeah, Yeah, at worst, she could have just waited outside and talked to the house. I mean, Yosef would have just lit a cigarette next to the wall and leaned up against the wall next to her or something. I don't know.
Yeah, 9-year-old just smoking a cigarette.
He's
in a
dead.
wheelchair.
Let him have his fun.
Yeah, he raced her down the stairs. That was a fun little kid activity.
That was so weird.
So silly.
Yeah.
The music helped.
The music helped.
Gave it eerie creepiness. Without the music, you could totally re-edit that to make it.
Oh, you could put some fun music on that.
And I will.
Yeah, please put some Tom and Jerry some
Looney
Tunes.
Hill.
Yeah, or the Powerhouse by Randolph Scott.
The only request that I have to make whenever you finish this edit Sinister is you need to add the Wilhelm scream to the wheelchair.
Flies off the stairs.
As it flies off the stairs,
yeah.
I did like the POV shot from the chair, though.
It was cool.
Chasing her.
Yeah. Okay, but realistically, let's just, for sake of argument and everything, what would have happened if the wheelchair had caught her? Like, what would have been the...
I guess he would have tried chucking her off the stairs.
But that happened anyways.
Tap.
I don't know. We kind of discussed what his headspace is at this point. Because right now, presumably, he feels betrayed by John, because at this point, John handed over all the evidence.
Yeah.
So this is just him lashing out like, okay, there goes my chance.
Yeah, and obviously, Joseph knows everything about modern criminal investigation, and
he's been around.
Yeah, or he is psyching himself up to kill him.
Maybe.
Like that thing that
That was the trial run.
Yeah, I'm gonna butcher this concept, but the idea that Sith they inflict pain on themselves to make themselves more powerful. That's what he was doing. He's just warming himself up. He's like, all right, okay, I'm about to drag this old man's ass here and kill him myself.
I think, and it is the weird moral thing of, did he do the right thing? Because technically, that, obviously that Joseph, whoever, became the old man or whatever, didn't necessarily do anything wrong other than just perpetuate the lie.
I do have a question. But is there any reason that the wheelchair turns upright again by the end of the film?
Joseph.
Yeah, he was just chilling.
I guess.
Yeah, he was just chilling out there, and was like, okay.
Because we come back, and after the whole fire's done, it's standing upright. So.
Well, obviously the rubber in the wheels caused a chain reaction that it bolted up.
The tires popped,
which goes supernatural powers. If he can kill a grown man, he can lift the chair and put it upright after it being down.
Yeah, obviously, it's for the visual aesthetic at the
absolutely,
end.
It's for the visual aesthetic. It's actually upright when Russell's lying on the floor.
Oh.
I think that might be a goof. I think that's a.
I think it's just a goof.
Yeah, that would be a goof.
Yeah. What a goof.
Claire's,
I will say that this is.
Claire's actress does a good job also being really, really terrified when Russell
she
comes
is
into
good.
her. She really sells it, man.
I looked up her filmography, and I'm honestly surprised she didn't do more kind of horror stuff, because she plays it really well. She only really did that other one that I think Crimson mentioned, The Hearse. That was like the only other one I could really find specifically. This has nothing to do with the story, but I think John looks better with glasses than without glasses. I'm going to take that stance.
Really?
Yeah.
I will take the opposite stance. I think he looks better without them.
Well,
I think he looks better with glasses. There we go.
Well, Crimson, looks like you're by yourself.
Oh, shocker. That never, ever happens.
I know.
It's such a rare thing.
Crimson on the wrong side of history. Never happened before.
Him with glasses in a ghost movie gives me thoughts of Bill Pullman in the Casper.
That's not at all what I was
just
imagining.
Think he looks better.
But yes, that works. I just think he just looks. I don't know. He looks a lot older without them, which is odd. I feel like with him he looks a little bit younger.
He does. Yeah. He does look older with him.
Let's see, is there anything else we really want to touch on in this last part?
There's still plenty.
I've
calm-like ending.
Yeah,
where the music box turns and starts playing, and in my notes I'm like, oh, Joseph.
His last
Oh,
act.
you kidder.
His last.
Oh,
act of-
you big lug.
Yeah. His last
Like
act
ended
of
like a
getaway.
Goosebumps episode.
Yeah.
No, I think a Goosebumps episode there'd be like a bit more of a jolt, wouldn't there? Because it's usually like the twist is that
A little
there's
more
like,
of a joke.
well, there's a joke or like, oh, I was an alien all along. You weren't an alien or something.
Well,
That's
I think
usually.
the joke kind of here is like, whole house burnt down. He's still there.
I guess that is like, yeah, like it didn't really solve anything.
The wheelchair's still intact.
I don't know, his last time listening to music before he fades away into heaven or below.
Okay.
Well, he killed
All right,
someone,
what
so
a-
I'm going with
What
below.
a kind soul of an answer.
I'm notoriously nice, as we all know here.
Yeah.
I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but what did you all think of the John versus the senator kind of, I know we kind of said that like if we
Oh,
felt
back and
bad for
forth.
him. Yeah.
It felt
was
somewhat like a
alright.
different movie.
It was a weird, it did seem kind of almost anticlimactic a little bit because nothing, I mean stuff came from it, but nothing seemed like there really was much of a air of relief or something. It just kind of, he's just like, okay, here's all the evidence, I'm done.
Off of that, Crimson, nope, Sinister.
Yep.
Yes, sorry, I was thinking Sinister. Does it play better that John saw the astral projection of the senator going up the stairs? Then does that help in any way?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there was like a something came of it, but in the moment it just seemed like this, like all this because there's all this build up for it, and then it's just like you can't really tell if he was in on it or if he wasn't or what was going on. I mean, obviously by the end of it, but it was a very, at first, I mean, it's a good scene, but it was very kind of out of place for the moment.
Yeah, because at the start of the conversation, you're kind of going in thinking he knows everything, especially sending DeWitt in just to take the necklace,
Yeah,
or the medal, and then throughout the conversation, and obviously
You realize that
he doesn't know it, and now he's just in denial that his father was a terrible person, one of the worst.
it takes a certain kind of evil to kill your own son.
I think I quite like it, to be honest. But
I like it.
Then again, I'm usually like, I will take character over action any day. I'll take character over horror any day. So like them turning it into like the reveal, one of the final act scenes into purely like mostly a well written discussion between two characters, and him having to realize that his father is a monster, I think is very pointed. I think it. I don't know. I quite.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm just like in the with the whole movie to consider it in. It does feel like it's struggling to kind of find where it wants to fit tonally.
I think it's alright. I don't think it has like a punch. It doesn't feel like an end of a movie talk to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, it could have used something. It needed another like lasting punch or lasting reveal, I think, to make it more weighty as a scene. Though I'm not sure what you would do.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I can't.
If they had made it more, if they really played into the fact that he doesn't know anything, I do think it makes the ending more tragic, and I think that would have worked out enough.
Oh.
If they really played up that aspect, but they don't. So,
I don't really know, like, because I feel like there is an ending to it with the whole astral projection thing or whatever, and that does work. But I just wish the conversation kind of had just that punch to it.
Yeah, it just needed one more thing to really like land the scene. I get it.
Yeah,
because that was kind of the last thing John really did.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
The rest of it, he was just laying on the floor because he got knocked off the second floor.
And I really
that
thought
was kind of his last moment.
Him. Yeah,
that's true.
But Sprinks, you were kind of silent through. What did you think of that? The talking.
It. Oh gosh.
And you can feel free to be the opposite of
No,
us,
it
yeah.
feels like it's from a different movie. Because one of my biggest gripes with this movie is how sharply cut each quarter. This movie feels very distinct in quarters, and each quarter feels like its own thing.
Yeah, like the first quarter feels like a drama of like
The
losing
first
your
quarter is a
kids or
man
whatever.
losing his wife and kid, and it's sad, and he's trying to adapt to it. Second quarter is a man alone in a haunted house being spooked by a ghost. Third quarter is a man on a detective mission to solve some kid's murder. Fourth quarter is a man getting his
conspiracy.
comeuppance from the ill identity theft his bad father did. It felt like kind of 4 movies all put into one, and their interactions with each other tried to stretch out a whole story.
Would that be a factor from the writers being mainly playwrights, like writing an X for plays? You think
Could
that
be.
could be a correlation?
It was very apparent to me, or that's how I saw it.
I think overall, like, I was kind of against it at first, but I think overall that kind of works because you sort of get a wider palette, and the characters seem to do more within that structure. I think if this is just all and out one of those 4 things, it wouldn't really be as good. But it does kind of go into the, it does kind of cross the line of, being like overly dipping into, other stuff, and you kind of don't really get a catharsis.
Yeah, the balance of the first act only having to do with the daughter and wife that don't appear or get talked about or flashed back again for the rest of the film corresponds also with the last act of having DeWitt, who's in 2 scenes. Like, DeWitt isn't earlier on to be present in the background of knowledge of the whole film, and then the whole connection to his past wife and daughter aren't brought up, which would strengthen a connection to the film. But
DeWitt, I don't really think he has a place to be earlier in the film, really. I mean, if you threw him in like, welcome to the neighborhood, I'm your local officer.
Welcome to the
I think no.
He could have been at the senator's party.
Yeah, the thing with Dwight, I think he would have more use in helping to build the paranoia towards the police, which would have then added, more onto the fact that why he didn't want to go to them. But they don't really, like I said, he's an underutilized character because he could have been an avenue for a few other things that he just didn't do.
There's a lot of good stuff there. There's also it kind of feels like the story doesn't really get the catharsis a lot of the times that you thinking it's going for. I think it's the one complaint you could have.
Yeah, in regards to his family not being relevant later, I mean, I think it's part of his character's motivation to helping Joseph, who's a kid.
Yeah, trying to make up for like
I think that's present throughout the whole film. His motivation to helping is just because he had a kid. Otherwise, why the heck would he even bother staying at this place and helping?
He's just a good dude, man.
No, I think he just wants to help a kid out.
Trying to help a kid out, man. Yeah, I agree.
So it's not completely without connection to the family. His motivations are driven by his family being gone.
Yeah, but it never brings up like his daughter. Or never asks like during the seance, "Hey, is this my daughter?"
He doesn't
just sits
to,
and
that would be
why
weird.
would it be?
But he doesn't have to though. Like that's implicit
weird.
to his character. He doesn't have to bring it up.
And it doesn't have to be spelled out to the audience.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. He doesn't have to be. That's in that the love for his daughter is implicit. Like we don't need him to spell it out to us. We can understand that.
No,
part of his character.
No. It doesn't have to be spelled out or shown his love for his family, but the fact that his reaction to a ghost presence and everything that pretty much automatically gives the fact that he believes in ghosts, that he wouldn't branch on finding a way to leave or say goodbye to his family that was taken away from him so fast, and he watched them die. He could do nothing about it being stuck in the phone booth. It just seems to be completely out of his mind. Completely escaped.
I see. There's an avenue which I thought they were going to go with it, Like, because the way to do what you're talking about, Springs, is just do something with the ball. Like, he just gets rid of the ball eventually. Like, he does it. He gets rid of it initially in this film as to try and distance himself from the ghost. But I mean, if he got rid of the ball at the end of the film, I think that would have been good enough to get the message across. That
I think that just kind of got something, or and got something in me that I think maybe is why I'm a little disappointed by the ending, just a little bit. It's more about Joseph's like kind of
revenge than it is concluding
revenge
story,
than like John kind of coming to terms with his like kind of family death. It seems like, because it feels like John's story doesn't really get an ending, in that same way as much as Joseph's. And you could probably argue that they're tied together in some way, and that fair enough. But I kind of wish John sort of got an ending that felt like it was his own ending and not just in connection with Joseph.
I can agree with that a little bit. Russell's kind of left to the wayside.
I don't know what they would do with that.
It kind of dampens the
I don't.
fact.
No.
Well, as I said, just have him say goodbye to the ball. That would be enough.
Yeah, I think that could have. Yeah, that would be something. Yeah.
Because I mean, that's the one item that we have a visual image tied to with his daughter, and therefore his previous life. So him saying goodbye to that at the end of the film would be more than enough to wrap a bow on his story.
I suppose, but it did get burned down at the house.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. The ball is now gone.
But the wheelchair didn't.
And the case, I guess, too.
The wheelchair did get cooked. Let's not pretend it was.
No, and the music box got cooked, but still functional.
Which it wouldn't be, but
that's also true. Music box.
Also, the music box was in his bedroom where it exploded.
Well, everything fell.
Well, yeah, his ghost dad and ghost cub were also upstairs.
Right. Okay, now I understand earlier what you meant by explosion. Okay, yes.
Yeah, when the senator astral died.
I thought you meant like the house exploded, and I was like,
no, the house burned down, but the room exploded.
Psychic energy.
I don't think the real music box was upstairs though. That was just
he brought it down. Yeah, he brought it down.
Yeah, he brought it down.
The piano, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like that's the last time we see of it.
Ah, never mind that. It was not up there.
It was not up there.
It was not.
Okay, I didn't mean to make it sound like the room.
I know, but I did. I meant to make it sound like Tommy Wiseau. What are you, slow of hearing?
Well, Crimson, I don't have anything else to touch on for the film.
I think I've made my peace.
All right. The senator dying. What do you think killed him?
Joseph.
Because we cut to him at his projection at the house, like kneeling on the ground, like choking to death on the smoke. And this was in the present room. This wasn't the projection room.
Oh,
did his ghost self choke to death?
I assumed he had a heart attack. Like the idea of the strain or slash aneurysm of the projection or whatever that he was forced to do to see the truth is what killed him. Like he couldn't survive it.
There was a episode of X-Files where they had the psychic connection with the incident, and a lady drowned even though she was on land. And so there you go.
You're going with the smoking angle then? With the heart attack angle?
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see either, I suppose. Because his projection was reacting to the smoke. Then it blows up and then he dies. I don't know.
I'm on the heart
not really a definitive answer for that.
I'm on the heart attack team. I think it was all vision in his head.
Yeah, I think this.
Well, you said that John saw the projection.
Yeah, John saw the astral projection.
Yeah.
But what the senator was seeing,
astral project, so it's kind of
what the senator was seeing was through his projection, but his body's still in the room.
I think he had a heart attack while he was choking on the smoke.
All right, good middle ground.
Marry the two visions together.
Yeah, I think that the shock of him, coughing on the smoke sent him into a heart attack, which inevitably killed him.
I guess the last thing I have Do you think John would have just given all the evidence over? Do you think he was pretty much done at this point, or do you think?
Oh yeah.
I think that was like the
Buildings
only. I think that was the only way he could prove to the guy that he wasn't trying to blackmail him and that he believed that it was true, and. So I
Also,
I mean,
Senator's
really,
dad gets dirt off his hands.
well, and plus
There is any.
technically the guy who committed the murder is long
No, I'm
dead.
saying
So it's not really
before when he handed over the evidence before the whole
at the meeting, with the senator.
Yeah, when he handed over the recording and the paperwork and the medallion.
No, I think that was his way to just clear things up. Yeah, say he's done. Here's the best he could do, because before that he's screaming at Joseph of like, what can he do? And that. So I think that was.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Ryder, I think you were the last one. Did you have anything else?
Not really. I think I got it. Yeah, I'm all good.
All right. That's 1980, The Changeling.
Yay! We made it.
That was the whole 1980s.
All in one
absolutely
movie.
Not.
Yeah.
It was all the 1970s.
It wasn't even filmed in the 80s, and it was the 80s. So
Mine thing said 1979, so
79.
that must have been in Canada.
Class up. We'll just go summary ratings, starting with Sinister.
What a build-up.
I don't think that was actually random.
It wasn't random.
No, he chose you.
Nobody tries to.
That was just drum roll.
That was just a drum roll, huh?
That was tension. That was Crimson building tension after covering a tension movie.
We learned from the best. Yeah, can't deny it. All right. So yeah, going into this movie, I kind of wasn't expecting all that much, just because it seems.
Crimson is a sucker with horror, or?
Well, no. Nothing to do with Crimson. No, it's just because the way he explained it to me was that it was like, because he told me about it and was like, yeah, it's not like super scary, but and I'm like, okay, so I can deal. But I was just like, probably gonna be like a cheesy horror film or something, and even though they're enjoyable because of how funny they aren't really like deep or have like a lot of film. Great film moments in them or something. But I was pleasantly surprised by I think a lot of the focus and overall how much this actually kind of worked versus didn't work, A lot of what I liked about this, I think, was the sound design was really good, a lot of Foley stuff. On the recap, we'll have to probably talk about the loud film grain and see about that, but without talking about that, the acting was pretty darn good for the most part. I don't think there was anybody that really stood out as being kind of bad. There's maybe a few little moments that were kind of just hacky or hammy or maybe, but for the most part, I think all of them were fairly serious and obviously, we touched on like kind of the use of not being overly scared, except for very specific moments, which I think is definitely a good point for this film, and I think it works overall. I don't know if it would work for every horror film, but I think it definitely meets the balance between kind of I think what Ryder was talking about with a logical kind of use or rational versus irrational behavior. This isn't necessarily a horror film, but for 1979, it's a horror film. A couple of points that we mentioned were the overall ghost rules seem to be pretty much they could do just about anything, which fair enough. Lack of having rules is in itself kind of a rule, and I don't think they really broke that down in any way, so can't knock it too hard. Couple of we did mention that this film feels like 4 different films or 4 different stories kind of mashed into one, which overall I think works in its favor. There's some moments, and we touched on that sort of the ending doesn't feel quite as cathartic as it probably could be, because we kind of have 2 main characters going on in the forms of John Russell and Joseph. And for having one of them having a decent ending, it kind of sacrifices the other person having a decent ending. But that could be up to personal opinion. And in my personal opinion, I think that weakened at least one of the other. That being said, I think this movie feels about... I was going in with about a 5, and I think I'm leaving with about a 6. Pretty decent. Definitely aged a little bit, but overall, I think it's better than I expected, and I think still holds up fairly decently, all things considered.
Solid 6. We'll go with writer next.
All right. I'll start with my subjective.
Also an act I don't think was right.
I'll do my subjective first. I enjoyed the film. It's a little on the slow side for me, in the sense that I don't think I'd actively choose to watch it again. And that's not saying it's a bad movie, but it wasn't boring at all. I really liked the character work that was being done. I was pretty much hooked from the opening scene. If I was a little confused in the first minute or so of why the hell we were in the middle of nowhere. But I think it does pull you into the film, and what Spring said when how the film can be split into 4 parts, I quite enjoyed each of those parts, not necessarily being separated, but I had different reasons to like each part, because it added something fresh to what was a slow movie, and it kept me engaged in that way. So I think subjectively I'm hovering at about a 7. Objectively, let's see. I've been kind of bouncing between a kind of range of 3 numbers actually. But I think I've finally settled on it. I think the characters are mostly well written. They have I'll start with just the main character, obviously, which is Mr. Russell. He's a very rational character in a horror film, which is very hard to portray. And I think they mostly hit the nail on the head with only a few scant outlying scenes where he felt out of character. Just because we didn't see the progression to them, or we were missing something to get to the point of which he gets there. I'm obviously referring to the airport scene where he's just running up to the senator. But otherwise, I think I quite like his slow approach to things, his calm, collected approach. It doesn't pay for like a very frightened protagonist, but I think having him be a rational character really grounds us into almost the realism of the story, or the potential behind the realism of the story. I think Claire Norman also falls in that same vein. She's just doing her job for the most part. Then she has a more personal and invested interest as things continue to go along. Again, the only real outlying thing is the end where she goes into the house, and she does hear voices, but it's a very, very... It stands out as very obviously the filmmakers just wanted to do a horror sequence, and she was a good enough actress to do it. But otherwise, I think she's in character. I quite like her, and she and Russell make a good team together, doing their separate parts of the investigation and contributing both in their own ways. And I think the only other main character really to talk about is Yosef and Carmichael. Joseph, and I keep saying Yosef now because I'm an idiot. So I think Joseph is... by the end, I didn't know fully what his goal was. I think that was confused. Like, I don't know if he was fully, just wanted to take revenge, which I think is what they're going for. But given the information that we find out, and that the story is clearly telling us that he doesn't know, it kind of paints... that Carmichael doesn't know. It kind of paints Yosef in a much darker light than I think I would have liked the movie to have ended with him. I haven't really decided if that's inconsistent with Yosef, because Yosef doesn't seem to be a very vindictive spirit throughout the most of it, up until the death of the detective. He's very just I want to know what happened, and that's seems to be the supernatural's source of motivation for the film and the story. Because obviously even the darker stuff he does, which is scaring the little girl, he does this to convince the mom to let Russell come back to dig up the well. So that's grounded in reasoning to a degree. So I'm still on the fence of whether he crossed the line at the end, in having it be in character or not. So I'm just gonna leave that little note more ambiguous of Yosef at the end. Then we got Carmichael, who is very serviceable. They do a lot of groundwork for him in just one scene, which is where he's reacting and playing off of Mr. Russell giving him the items and thinking that he's being blackmailed, and then being in denial. I think his presence in the story is a good one, as he's introduced fairly early on. He comes back in a meaningful way. So he feels like a very important character, and we get everything we need to know about him in order to make the ending have some impact. And then the world building, got inconsistencies with how the ghost powers work. The fact that we had to settle on teleportation as the most likely thing that can tie things together shows a sign of that it's inconsistent, or it's a sign of we don't really know how fully well they work. Other than that, I think the plot's pretty simple. And I'm going to use Sprinks as an example of the 4 different genres that make up the film. The plot falls into that, and it falls into those 4 subcategories that makes up the film, and I think it works to a degree. So I think with some minor damage done to characters and potential inconsistencies, and with the world building being the most inconsistent thing because of the powers, I think I'm at an 8 objectively.
Joke. Well, since I've been accused of not being random, Sprinks, do you want to go or me?
Oh, why don't you put it on my plate?
You're the one that pointed it out.
Oh man!
Well, I did technically, but
Yeah, you've gone already.
I'll
You
go.
piggybacked.
I'll go.
All right, go ahead.
We'll save you for last. You're the one who chose it. All right. Let's start with objective. The 4-act thing was definitely after the fact, being my first time watching this film. I think it could have been stronger. I think it could have been tailored more throughout the film to give it a strength that was not there. Crimson did say it was written by 2 screenwrites, so that is definitely an effect could be played into it. If this was a play, I think it would be stronger in that aspect. I don't know where an intermission would be in the middle, but I don't like that John's the main guy, and it starts off with this scene. Like, the hook scene is his family dies, his loved ones died, but they don't get touched on. Again, he gets so engrossed, which I also think is very fast. It's very fast how engrossed John gets into figuring out Joseph's story. It's like overnight. We don't really know what time frame. I don't know if a week has gone by of him and Claire trying to solve things, but it does kind of feel and come across that it's the next day for a lot of this stuff, that it's just the following day from day to night cycle. But just how fast he is on it to help Joseph, but it's nothing to do with his family, and the only connection to his family is the ball. But then the ball is only for one scene, and it could have been stronger, but it's just kind of died off. Didn't like that. I think the second act is my favorite part, or if this is split into 4 pieces, I think the second part is my favorite because that has the most eerie, like, ghost, unknown mystery kind of part to it, and I think that's the best of a film generated as horror thriller for this film. So I think that's the best part to me. The third part of going after Carmichael and trying to learn what happened to Joseph in this mystery is helpful, but if the second and third parts of this film was stretched, so the second was kind of the start and the third was kind of the end, like trying to solve the end, maybe like half of the fourth, I think that would have been a better film than the whole first part about his family and then the whole last part of how Joseph gets his revenge kind of thing, and then John just kind of walks off with Claire and leaves. There's no like examining the house or check. They just leave. so with what Sinister was saying, I don't think he had a proper send off. It didn't take the main actor thing from, or the main character thing from John to put onto Joseph, but the story did get more into Joseph's tale, which was just odd, at least to me. I think the editing was poor at parts. There were some parts that were just cut really sharp. There were some parts that I think sound design would go into the editing aspect of the loud, sorry, not film grain, as I said, but white noise that's present. I think it could have been done better in editing. So the editing, I think, could have been far better and was not. My favorite part of this whole film, I think, was the composed score and piano music and strings that were used to go along with the film at certain parts. My favorite part with that would have been as I touched on, the students coming to practice with the strings, and after they leave, the kind of score from piano that's been following John goes to strings when he's like going through the house following the water trail that Joseph's doing. So I really like that, and it gives that eerie tone and everything. And a lot of people say if you take music out of a horror movie, it's like 80% less scary. This is a great example of that. Like that whole the wheelchair chasing Claire kind of thing. You take that music out, edit in something else, it can be funny. And that's another thing to me. I found parts of this movie funny. It's, I guess, just because it reminded me of the 1966 Ghost of Mr. Chicken film, which is a comedy. And there's aspects of that came across in this, which I found funny. But this is taking itself seriously. So that's just a little off for me. This movie gave me a little bit of feels of The Boy, of something's locked away, some story of a kid in a big house. So it gave me a little bit of that. The acting, I think, was fine. I think the best actress in this was Claire, whoever did Claire. I think she did very well with her panic and concern for John and seriousness over the senator and all that. Cinematography, there was some fine angles, a lot of upward angles, downward, POV shots, tracking, wide pans, as we touched on. Lighting, most of it was natural with the use of the house itself. Most of it was artificial in the house with lighting used of lights in the house, which I guess is natural. But anyway, daytime shots were all natural lighting. The whole lunchtime, because there was a bunch of windows there for natural lighting. So the lighting I had no problem with, other than the fact that there were shadows you can see of crew members and film crew. So overall, objectively, I'm giving it a 6 because I don't see it as a bad movie, but it's a movie that could be better. Subjectively, it was very It was an movie. I think the pacing was a bit off, which kind of took me a little out of it. It was kind of like a Goosebumps, but without the cheesy jump scare ad kind of thing. To me, maybe I'm desensitized to some horror because of modern age, but it didn't really feel like a horror movie at all. It was just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it. Maybe my expectations were not met, and maybe that's how I came across it, because of like a name like the Changeling. I'm like, ooh, maybe it's like some kind of creature, and then I had to deal with ghosts. I'm like, ooh, the ghost is like changing people or something, and it started changing John by playing music like that's on the music box. I'm like, ooh, that's the connection. And then the reveal is that it's just a dad who was greed. It's just greed, and the greed went to some kid who adopted, and he's the changeling because he's now Joseph Carmichael. But they don't really touch on that a far lot, except towards the end. He doesn't really keep saying he's Joseph Carmichael throughout the film. Like when they know him, he's just Senator Carmichael, and I guess that's kind of like a reveal. It's like, oh, he's Joseph, or he's called Joseph, and whatever. So subjectively, I give it a 4.
I prepared for you to give this a 6. Did you know you gave the Nutcracker a 6.5 objectively?
I know that now, and I stand with my ground.
And Halloween Town a 7.5?
Oh, I definitely stand with Halloween Town.
Chippendale a 6.5?
0.5? Yeah, Chippendale's, objectively better.
I'll
I
leave the
stand
rest
with
for recap.
Okay.
All right, so for mine... I guess the summary aspect of this, I was a little worried when we were coming up with the season because we all pitched ours. I did Changeling because we haven't really done too much horror. We got the Blair Witch, and is there something else, or was it just
quote unquote men?
Men-ish.
Yeah, men is
Men-ish.
English horror.
Yeah. So we had those. I'm like, okay, something new. And then later, Sinister threw his in, which was Brain Dead, which was a horror. I'm like, oh no, 2 horrors. Hope they're not too similar. Once you watch Brain Dead, I'm like, woof, we got 2 very different horror movies. Very different. So going to this, I was expecting kind of low subjectives because most of my feelings for this is from when I saw it as a child. There's some stuff that's in here that's kind of scary for a child. But modern day 2023 adults here, I would imagine this wouldn't.
Desensitized, yeah.
Desensitized, or it's just outdated in a sense. Because horror now, it is like jump scares or just gore. It's a very different genre now.
Or
what it was.
More cerebral or psychological than even this, yeah.
So it's very different. So subjectively, it's not not one of my favorite movies at all. The main reason I picked it is just for the variety and your guys' thoughts. So
would it even crack like the top 20 or top 30 of your films?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. 6.5. I'll probably watch it again at some point in my life. That's probably as much as I'll give it. Objectively, certainly is not a perfect movie. I think the police involvement isn't great. I think with Detective, what's his face? DeWitt. DeWitt. I think he's present enough, but if we want to better prop up the police, I do think he could have been utilized better for that. But if we weren't making the police better, I think his presence is okay on its own. So I also think he's the worst well, I'm not going to say he's acting in general because it's the only thing I've seen him act in, but his performance in this, I think, is the worst out of everybody in the film. Because I think Claire and John were very good actors in this. Especially Claire, I agree. Her fear performance was top notch, top tier. Lots of crew shadows in this. There was a couple I didn't even mention because in my notes I wrote it down, but I couldn't remember the scene specifically, so I didn't bother mentioning them. But there's a good amount of them in here. The actual house itself, I think, looked really good, interior and exterior. Going in, I knew it was a real house. I didn't know it was built for the movie. So I think that adds even more personally to it. I think that's really cool. The inside design of the stairs was amazing just because of the amount of shots they got with them. There was a lot of really good shots of those stairs. Like Spring said, there was some good down ones, up ones, just pretty much any angle they could with those stairs they utilized. Even with the one going up to Joseph's room, really good. It's a pretty dark film, lighting-wise, but I think it definitely helps with the atmosphere. I think this movie's got one of the best atmospheres I think I've seen in a movie. Because, once again, could go down to me seeing it as a child. Nonetheless, I'll point it out, I think it does have a good atmosphere. The airport scene is not good. Not just because it's out of character for John. I think every aspect of it isn't that good. The filming composition of it's not great there. Let's see what else. Joseph, I'm kind of with Ryder where he kind of went off the rails towards the end there. I'm okay with him getting the revenge on him. I think that's okay, but we get a lot cranked up on his powers. And it is beneficial that there aren't any established rules, but it is kind of like, oh, wow, he can really do this now? He's getting really powerful. So, objectively, I don't know, because they didn't break any rules. But the teleporting thing is a weak excuse for some things, but it is an excuse that could be applied. So, objectively, I'm giving it a 7.5. Any last thoughts before Ryder takes us out?
Not that I can think of. Maybe say if I think of any, I'll bring them in the recap.
We better get out of here before Joseph burns the house down. And
All
traps
right,
us all
then
inside.
I'll read us out, and so Joseph doesn't take his revenge on us. Well, thank you, audience, for listening wherever you are, whether it be Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And if you're on our YouTube side of things, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Marin.
I'm a character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Sprinks.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.